From the broken ruins of Babylon, this is End of Days Radio. I am your host, Daniel, broadcasting to you all the way from that shimmering Emerald City right here in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. Today's date is January 17th, 2019. 2019, it's the future. And welcome, everybody, to this dystopian, post-apocalyptic future, these last days, this Road Warrior scenario. How are you? Today's guest is James True. James True is a programmer and software engineer. He's also an author. He wrote a book called The Spell of Six Dragons. And most important of all, he is a truth seeker, truth speaker. And he is here today to bridge the gap between occult and technology. Very interesting hearing the perspective of an actual software engineer. Also, remember to get End of Days Radio on iTunes or the Google Play Store or Google Play app. Sorry, I don't have an Android, so I get a little confused. I'm on Apple. I have bitten the apple. The snake offered me an apple. I took a bite. It's in my pocket. Actually, I have it out right now. I use it to assist me in doing the show. Remember to go to endofdaysradio.com. Ooh, it hurts when I forget to plug the website where you can see who's coming on, who's going to be on the show, and you can read about me, and you can leave me messages, and you can visit the forum. Forum's still pretty dead. Hopefully we'll see some action in there one of these days. It's just most of the End of Days Radio stuff goes down on Twitter. But it's nice to have an alternative. So I'm going to keep trying to build up the forum. Hopefully my dreams will come true, and we'll get a community of truth seekers in there sharing some hot knowledge. But we can talk about that later. I'm going to go ahead and call our guest this evening, James True. I'm going to dial him up, so stay tuned. Hello.
Hey there, hang on a second.
Oh, no problem.
Close this window. Hey Daniel, can you hear me? What?
Hey, James.
Hey Daniel, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming in pretty good, actually.
Great.
I understand you just got Skype working.
Yes, I did. Thank you for any patience that might be required.
Oh, yes, I totally know Skype is actually my worst enemy. We get in all kinds of struggles.
Yeah, so far so good. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, you sound great. I'm surprised it's going so well. Knock on wood.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I understand that you are now hitting the podcast circuit. How exciting.
Yeah, it's fun. This is my second show. So hopefully it won't be my last, or maybe it's meant to be my last. We'll find out.
I really doubt that, because usually when people come on End of Days Radio is like right when they're starting to get hot. So I think this is going to be the beginning of your amazing, exciting career.
Well, let's not oversell it. It's great to be here.
Well, let's get right down to it. What I usually like to do is just get a little bit of info about what my guests have been up to. It's usually a great way to start things off. How have things been going for you? Is there any recent happenings or anything that you would like to kind of start off with?
Well, my latest article, The Litany of Space, has a fun pick at the ISS. There's a few things that I don't think people know about yet, and I'm actually pulling it up so I can tell you the date here. But I believe I have uncovered a vast conspiracy in the international space propaganda market. And basically I wrote an article kind of poking holes in NASA, not really on purpose. I'm researching for a novel about satellites. And I started that novel 2 years ago. And as I got more and more into satellites, I got more and more kind kind of doubtful about about what was happening with our space program. And so as a result of that, I've been doing some research, and it's really led me into the propaganda of the Apollo program and how much of that just doesn't seem true. And two of those events show me that there's some kind of international thing happening. And what those are is that on the two NASA anniversaries, the biggest anniversaries that NASA has, landing on the moon and landing on Mars, those are like the biggies for them, right? So on both of those anniversaries, a Russian astronaut claimed to find sea plankton on the windows of the ISS. And then on the other anniversary, an Italian astronaut claimed to nearly drown while outside on the ISS. And both of those kind of give you the impression of water. And of course, NASA has a underwater training facility in Dallas. And then if you bring up the whole concept of space bubbles, it really kind of shows that what we're being told is basically fabricated. And more importantly, countries kind of work together on this in the fabrication process. Even the China landing is a recent example of that.
Yeah, that's. I'm so glad that you're bringing this topic up, because I have really been getting in quite a few arguments, debates, I suppose you could call them. Some of them a little bit nasty, but I've really been kind of getting hit with the satellite thing, and it's been kind of hard for me to come up with the proper responses and rebuttals, because I'm not really an expert on that particular thing. I always seem to get hit by have all these things thrown at me that I'm not an expert on, but I believe from what I've been looking at myself that you might be totally right. These satellites, it doesn't seem like they're really up there, are they?
It's a strange story. If they are up there, there's a lot of really strange things about it. We don't see any pictures. They don't really make the news a lot when they do go up. I mean, we're talking, I think it's 2,500 satellites in commission right now, 1,000, maybe 1,000 more, which are sort of dead, that are floating out there. Most of those are meant to be engulfed by the atmosphere as they sink in. But meanwhile, we don't actually see necessarily proof that not only are they there, but even that whether or not they're necessary. GPS is a really good example of this, and I get hammered on this too, just like you have on facts, and you really have to know your stuff here. And GPS was actually invented in World War II, maybe World War I. I think it was World War II. And we had GPS working from signal towers long before GPS worked from satellites. And so even as something as simple as GPS, you can't really necessarily prove that all that's coming from satellites. Now, I'll get hammered because there's things like Doppler shift. There's an actual Doppler effect when it comes to satellite signals and things like that. But in the 50s, we were bombing the ionosphere, like 9,000 kilotons, I think, of quote-unquote nuclear warheads were launched in high-altitude detonations in 58, 59, 60, 61, 62. And then we stopped. And I've read some stuff that says that process, that implosion, those explosions charge the ionosphere. And because it's charged, it sort of acts like a dome in the sense that you could send a radio signal from the Earth. It would bounce off the ionosphere. And then if you had a satellite dish, you would pick up that signal, and you would not really know that it came from the ground versus whether or not it came from space. So there's a lot of weird things about that. Another biggie is that radio, we don't actually have to send out a signal anymore. When we do radio pickups, when we do a radio sweep, we used to have to send out a signal like a ping, like a dolphin or a bat would do this, or they're clicking and they're waiting for the click to come back. Radar works the same way. And around about the 50s, we didn't have to do that anymore. There's so much noise in the air electromagnetic noise, radio wave noise, whatever you want to call it, that it's enough to where it's bouncing back signals, and we're still getting tracers or signals from radar just from the actual atmospheric noise that's around too. So I'm still looking, but like I said, 2 years ago I started this novel. It's about an artificial intelligence that lives in space, and I'm talking about quantum computers. We're talking about ancient civilizations. I'm going through all this stuff, and all the research is fine. And this is, it's a novel, it's a sci-fi novel, but I want it to be as real as possible. And I go through all that, and I have no problems. And then when I get to the satellite part, and I put this artificial intelligence inside these 32 satellites that it's called this Atlas system, I hit this wall, and the wall is that I'm telling myself, my readers are not going to believe this stuff. And it's because I'm explaining to them how the satellite propulsion works. Like, there are two different methods of adjustment for a satellite. A satellite needs a boost. Like the ISS gets a boost, I think, about maybe once a year or something. And satellites will, if you don't give them a boost, then they supposedly fall into the atmosphere. But more importantly, satellites have to change their position, especially a telescope satellite. That's a example of that. They have to be able to switch and move and maneuver. And one of the methods of moving is dispelling gas, like a pressurized gas. It could be anything. This is the story. And then the second method is through, it's kind of like a built-in, it's not a gyroscope, but it's a spinning disc, and those discs, the momentum or the torque that's generated from that spin causes the satellite to pitch, roll, or yaw. Again, that's what they say. But as I'm doing my research, and I'm picturing both those propellants happening in a vacuum, like both of those actions occurring in a vacuum, and they're both completely different problems that are going to lead to, Twitter fistfights about how that's possible or how it's not possible. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to sell it to my reader. And I'm like, I really respect my readers. These are really smart guys. And how can I tell them that the third law is okay in space, and that if you actually do, basically fart into a vacuum, an infinite vacuum, that is forever sucking, is forever has a negative pressure, that doing spitting or putting anything into that would return you with, oh, here's some energy. Here, take some force. That what you did really made a difference to a galaxy that's, it's so big, and all of it apparently is negative pressure. And NASA wants me to believe that if you shoot something out that one way, it's enough to cause the friction, or whatever you want to call it, to push it back. I can't buy it.
Yeah, there's so many little things like that don't seem to quite add up, and it definitely can really get a person going down the road of asking more and more questions. One thing that I find particularly interesting, you just talked about, was the idea of bouncing the signals. Super interesting, because with a lot of flat earthers, their belief, not sure if I agree with this hardcore of a flat earth perspective, but they actually describe there being a glass dome surrounding the earth. It's called the firmament. I really have to wonder if that's actually real, or real in some way, like maybe the atmosphere is the firmament.
Yeah, there's a lot of different cosmological models out there, and some are ancient from Tibet, and some are new, some are Hindu, some are biblical. As you go up in space, as you go through each sphere, you get to the thermosphere, and then you get to the exosphere. You're when you get up that high, you're not just high. You're in an absence of everything. You really have to start to think about the the cosmological consequences or the psychological implications of being in a vacuum. Like, I think it's really funny when I hear people talk about, well, yeah, I'll just get in an electrogravitic vehicle and fly through vacuum space and go to Saturn and come back. And not once has anyone considered how can your ethereal body even move through a vacuum? Like how can your soul signal however you want to perceive the world? All of us have consciousness. We all know it. It all has to come from somewhere. And if you want to believe in your source or your guardian or whatever you want to call it, that entity, that connection has to come from somewhere. And I personally believe that I personally doubt that I could not leave the exosphere and still function as a conscious person, like actually be a conscious human being. We're stuck in this materialism where there's the earth and then people were placed on the earth. Like that's the myth that we have, is that there was the earth and then the earth ordered the Amazon kit for sea monkeys, but they ordered the people one, and they came and they brought the bag and then they dumped it. And that's the entire meaning of Hollywood, is to teach that notion that you're a head in a jar. But what we really are is we're walking fungus. We're mushrooms with kneecaps. I mean, we are the living soil. We're the fungus on the rock. We're not a foreign thing, and then we came to a rock, and then we kind of hung out there. We're more integrated than that, and it's a myth to keep pretending that space works that way. We don't know if space works that way. All we have is a rumor that 12 Masons, 12 officers of some sort of armed forces, each of which made an oath to serve their superior officers, and they've told us that they went to the moon. That's all we know. It seems crazy to pretend that that's enough for us to understand what's going on, and to even pretend that that's true just by looking at the Apollo program in general. There's so many holes in it. It's crazy. It's crazy that myth has gone on this long.
Yeah, for sure. And I always have trouble with this, because they tell you space is a vacuum, but then when it comes to actually describe what that vacuum is, they can't really give you a solid answer. It's not exactly a vacuum. It's just this and this and this. Well, there has to be something there, right? For anything to float up there, or for any sort of propulsion to work, there would have to be something.
Yeah, like Krauss is real big on that about, well, you're just not smart enough to understand what nothing means. Like that's kind of his standpoint on that, is to basically just say, well, only smart people know what nothing really means. And when I say nothing, we're talking about smart people nothing. He actually explained this once. It was pretty ridiculous. If you imagine what it feels like, if you've had, well, some of us don't have to imagine, but if you have a blood pressure monitor on your arm and you turn it up, that already hurts. Like, as you're waiting for your blood pressure to be taken, you are looking forward to that thing coming off your arm. I mean, it's a solid pressure, and that's what it is. I think that's like 1/5 of what it feels like to be in space. And we have film of sort of draped clothing on astronauts' uniforms, and they're bending their fingers and they're bending their elbows. And I think if you were to really think about what a vacuum is, imagine putting a rubber glove inside of a vacuum chamber, or actually, the vacuum of space. It's going to be taut from every point, from infinite directions. It's going to be pulled taut, and even bending your fingers. Imagine each of your fingers having to bend under the pressure of 2 to 5 times what a blood pressure monitor feels like. It's a fallacy. Whatever space really is, it's not a vacuum. But if you follow what the thermosphere just tells us it is, the higher up you go, it doesn't even matter what space is. Because the higher up you go, the less isness there even is. If you look at every molecule as a ladder or as a stair step into heaven, and that you could step on each one by one, you're going to run out of molecules. And it doesn't matter how fast your rocket, it doesn't matter how much fuel you put on that thing. It doesn't matter how fast you tell us you're going. Once you hit the vacuum, I don't know if there's anything even past that. And that's why when you think about the firmament and there even being a dome, I don't know if there is a dome, I don't know why they would bother to put a dome, whoever they is, meaning that just the absence of molecules is enough of a barrier. And so if anything else is above that, I don't know if we could even see it. Like, I don't even know if we could ever get it, because we're a medium of water, we're a medium of carbon, we're a medium of consciousness. And it's like, let's turn the color yellow into 2 + 7. It doesn't work that way. At least it seems hard to imagine it doesn't work that way.
The ISS in particular, I find to be fascinating and a little bit hilarious at the same time. We've seen on YouTube, and if you search Google Images and look around the internet, there's all these videos of the female astronauts on there, and they're putting their hair up with hairspray, and their hair just looks ridiculous. It's like they're kind of trying to blur the lines between fact and fiction and make it very hard to detect what's actually going on. I mean, we can't see their hair not behaving normally because they put so much hairspray in there. So they're using some very, very complicated sort of deception tactics. It's very thought out. But one thing that is interesting, and one of the major arguments that the globe earthers, if you want to call them that, will use is, we can see the ISS. We can see the ISS. I know for a fact that thing isn't real, and there's nobody in there. Maybe there is. Who knows? I don't think there is. But what do you suppose it could be that we're actually seeing pass over if we use the app or whatever to actually view it?
Yeah, you can definitely see the ISS. You can see what NASA says is the ISS, and that's all I know. Like, that's if you look at the live video feeds of the ISS, all I know for sure is that there's a lot of fraudulent video activity happening. I mean, that's what I know for sure. And there could be satellites up there. There could be an ISS up there. It really could. I've always assumed that there was. It's because I know how many times. It's because I know what it's like. It's because I know what the government would do if they were running a farm of people. Like, it's not this Joe Biden, we're going to put you in chains kind of thing. That's not how you do it. If you want to run a human farm, it's a lot easier. In fact, I can show you how to get them to fight over a wall themselves. I can show you where we can make it where people will work hard to bring our 5G towers into their land so we can kill them whenever we want. I can make it where they will fight over the right to have an EPA so that Monsanto can have a free ticket to do whatever they want. It's when you look at the psychological weakness that we have as a populace, it's becomes so much easier to understand the purpose of NASA, and even more importantly, it's so much easier to understand why an Italian astronaut and a Russian astronaut are calling foul on these anniversaries. You start to understand that, these are ranchers. That Russia is a rancher, America is a rancher. Donald Trump is basically a maitre d', and he decides where the blue's going to sit and where the red's going to sit in the restaurant of America. And every one of us is paying. Every one of us is a paying customer, whether we like it or not. And so all the different leaders we have, yes, those are real leaders. They really are the maitre d'. They really do decide, well, we're going to give the Reds the 8 top this time, because that's where all the tips are. And all the Reds are going to be like, fuck yeah, we have the 8 top, woohoo, and they're going to take over the restaurant. And they're going to feel like, yeah, man, we did it. Meanwhile, no one sees the owner. No one knows that it's this strange Greek guy that's sorry, I'm telling a personal story, but I've seen this. But where you've got someone that's never there, that he lives on an island in Greece. He doesn't even come to the restaurant. He doesn't even care. But you're under the impression that you're sticking it to him because you got the maitre d' you wanted, and it's cute, but it's mostly sad. And I want us to stop being sad. I don't want, man, we're going to die one day, and I don't want our generation to be another generation of fools, that were like, let's celebrate the after 9/11, for example, let's celebrate the Bush family, or let's get the Saudis now because they're the ones that was behind 9/11, or, whatever. Let's do greater Israel. I mean, that's what we keep doing, and we're spending 2 years on Mueller investigations, and it's taking 15 years for SpaceX, for example, to launch a rocket that basically just makes it up to the exosphere and back down again. Meanwhile, NASA did it in less than 10. If you see things from this perspective, everything kind of looks like it's just a staged kind of. It's a delayed game, It's not as real as we think it is.
Yeah, another interesting thing you mentioned earlier was the Apollo missions, and it almost seems like NASA is actually using some symbology and numerology and dates and stuff like that, as well as names of Greek gods and things like that. It seems like they're almost trying to tell us something, like maybe trying to tell us that it's not all real, or maybe there's some kind of psychological effect using those names like Apollo and things like that.
Saturn.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Saturn rocket, for example, that's the Saturn's, as big as Apollo was, the Saturn rocket program was even bigger. And that, if you look back to Osiris and ancient Egyptian religion, there's a story. The body's divided into, I think it's like 14 pieces, and it's scattered around. And Isis goes and gathers all the pieces except for one, the golden phallus. And when you think about Masons, and you think about pharaohs, and then you think about the Vatican and London and DC, they all have that same monolith, obelisk. Sorry, and then you look at the Saturn rockets, and to me, I just see an obelisk. I see an obelisk with a ton of jet fuel crammed up in it, pointless jet fuel, and it's white and yellow. It's this milk and honey kind of look. It's very symbolic of this resurrection of Osiris, and it feels to me that all we're doing is, no matter what humans say or try and do, we're being tricked into worshiping Osiris. And that's where the Illuminati thing starts. That's where you start to look at what a sigil is, and the magic of the eye as a sigil. And, for example, people say the Great Pyramid has no decorations, but that's not true. There's one decoration on the Great Pyramid, and there's only one. And it's a giant eye, and it's above the north door. And I think that eye is being seen by the Illuminati, because that's the eye in the pyramid, that is a sigil. It's a stone sigil that was here before anyone else. And by them sort of claiming that sigil, almost like a gang would grab turf, they can charge it themselves. They can pull from it too. And it's part of this cult mentality. It's why you see a lot of the the one-eye symbolism, I think, in Hollywood too. It's a homage to that, but it's a vibrational homage to that. In other words, the photographers, the Lady Gaga or whoever's doing that gesture, it's not like the boss came and gave this note, says you're supposed to put your finger over your eye and show that you're Illuminati. It's nothing like that. It's just more of a morphic resonance kind of a thing, where if you've bred the people correctly, like my dog, if you were to run a sheep by, even though he's never seen a sheep, he would instantly turn into a herder because that's what he does. We're the same breed. We've been bred to worship Osiris. We've been bred to follow government. We've been bred to morphically do these things. And every time we have kids, all we're doing is charging them more with whatever sigils we're given now. A perfect example of this is the TV show The X-Files. That was a show on Fox. It was about aliens and stuff. And I bring it up because it was one of the first shows about aliens. And although it traces back even earlier, what I mean is that we've been building and installing an alien sigil or an alien archetype in our minds. They've been doing that for a long time. And all they have to do that is just keep putting pictures around, keep telling stories about it, keep releasing movies about it, and they get to fine-tune that sigil. It's as an archetype, you're going to want it to be attractive. You're going to want people to remember it. You're going to want them to not really fear it unless you want a fearful sigil. But like if you look at E.T., the first Steven Spielberg movie about an alien, it had puppy dog eyes. It was cute. It was short. It was little, It was wrapped in a blanket. You could put it in a basket in your bicycle, It was a lovely thing. And then came the alien, the giant insect with the mouth inside of the mouth. And then you've got the grays, and you've got all these different sigils, real or not. I have some theories about what those bodies actually are, but you have all these sigils, and you're constantly charging them, and whoever charges the sigils, they're sort of own that sigil. So Hollywood sort of owns, it's like a corporate archetype that's in our mind. And there's not one person around now that doesn't think about or doesn't understand what the words abduction, UFO, ET, everyone knows what that word is now. But 200 years ago, no one talked about that. It wasn't a sigil yet. We weren't brainwashed in that way. It was something different.
James, where do you live, by the way?
In the high country of North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Have you always lived there, or did you move there later in life?
Lived here for about 10 years. I grew up in the South. I grew up in Chattanooga and in Tennessee. And then I kind of traveled around a bit. And then I came back and came up here to the mountains.
And how was it that you became so deeply interested in the computer world?
I was 13, I guess. Computers first came out, and it was just something that was really cool. And then I worked in the newspaper business a while, and then when the internet came out, I really fell in love with that, and I just dove in. And software just is something that just I seem to be adept at, enough. So I've been doing that ever since.
Did you get kind of addicted to it early on?
Early on, I was addicted to making a living, like just trying to survive. When you go into business for yourself, it's like having a child, a really, really, really painful child that can take a lot of time to get it off its feet. And the whole time you don't even really necessarily want to, it's not like I want to even be in business. I'm in business because I have to be, I like to learn and explore and think and solve. And then I just try and find a way to make money as I'm doing those things. So I think I'm more addicted to that part of it, the solving part. And software is a kind of poetry. It's a kind of magic. It's not a kind of magic. Software is magic. Software is a spellcraft. If you enter bracket HTML bracket, or if you enter shebang user Ben Perl, whatever language you speak, there's a protocol. If you say it correctly, if you do it at the right time with the right ritual, something amazingly magical happens. And so it's hard not to be super addicted to the implications and what that can mean, especially when you think about like artificial intelligence and virtual reality, stuff like that.
Yeah, I can't help but make that obvious connection to my favorite movie of all time, The Matrix, where pretty much the entire reality around the characters in the movie is computer code. It's all a simulation. Would you say that there could be some major truth to The Matrix? Could we be in some sort of simulation?
Well, our genetic code is code. If you were to unravel a strand, it's a coil of a winding, of a twisting, of a turn, and then all that stuck into a ball. And so that's compression. Like if you look at a computer, that would be the equivalent of, compressing a file. And then when RNA goes to copy that file, it uncompresses it, and then it streams that file in, and the motor proteins get to work, and it's super speed. It's copying, chain after chain after chain, block after block after block, and it's creating a brand new copy of it. And during that entire process, as it was copying, thousands of letters just zipping by, any kind of trauma that happened to your body while that's happening, or any kind of anything, even any kind of something fabulous was happening while that's happening, all that energy, good or bad, is going into every single one of those copying processes instantaneously, like it's being injected into the stream. And there's nothing you can do about that to change it. It's constantly happening. And so if you start to unravel that DNA, and what I was talking about earlier about how us, we are the living soil, if you start to really look at how we are truly connected, not just to each other, we are connected to each other, but what I mean is that we feel our connection to each other more than we feel our connection to the air, to the atmosphere, to the dirt, but more importantly to this giant living organism, which is a continent probably, or whatever it's going to be. We are a function of a larger algorithm, and that algorithm is our home. It's our earth. It's everything around us. And so when I look at all that, that is code. That is a living matrix. In fact, it's a living matrix of quartz. And there's so much quartz in the ground. And quartz is really special, It's not only is it a crystal, there's lots of crystals, but quartz is a very dependable crystal. It's a kind of crystal that when you send a signal to it, you can time, to the millisecond, whatever, how good that pulse is going to come back to you. And I fight with doctors all the time on Twitter. And one of the reasons that I fight with them is because they're like completely, if it's not Western medicine, screw that. And not all of them are like that, actually. And it's really turning around. But one of them was like putting a meme up about, people who worship crystals are dumbasses, kind of a meme. And I realized this doctor has no idea that every single piece of equipment that is in that hospital that he uses, that he touches, that he thinks about, even his phone, it's surrounded in quartz crystals that are held very, very specifically between two hands, like two vibrating, resonating pads. And they're held gently in just the right way so that crystal can resonate. And that crystal only resonates because we place an electric photon into it. We give it a little zap. And we know when we give it that zap, it's going to always behave in a certain way. And because we know that, we can build the entire world off of that. And so how can that not be a giant computer? How can how can Earth not be a giant program? And we are simply rendering formulas for her through our CSF, our cranial spinal fluid. It's a crystalline liquid. It starts in your head and goes all the way down your spine, but it doesn't just go down your spine. It forms a donut. It's inside the spine, and then it's insulated, and then there's a layer of it outside the spine. And if you open any kind of component, any kind of robotics component, any kind of electrical circuitry, not only will you find crystals, but you will find a capacitor. Excuse me. It looks like a long tube, and it's got like paper, and it's insulated, and it's the exact same thing as our CSF, as our spinal fluid. It's the exact same concept. It's an elongated, insulated antenna of crystalline liquid. And our pituitary gland and our pineal gland, both those glands touch that. Both those glands inject something into it. And I'm just finding a lot of this research is really blowing my mind because I've just been fresh on me lately. But that's the land of milk and honey. These are the pit is your milk, the low spot that's inside your head, your pituitary. The pineal is the honey. And we are rendering emotional decisions. And all these rendered emotional decisions are being returned to whatever you want to call it, the processor, the central library, the MySQL, the database, whatever you want to call it. It's when we die, our asynchronous connection. It's really important to realize that. I actually have to say that real quick. Our lives are asynchronous. There's not a life in this universe that doesn't start in an event and then hold a solid stream until you die, and then it's gone. We don't live our lives like we skip rocks, where, well, he lived for 3 years and then he stopped working. And then we left him in the corner. And, next Thanksgiving, he just fired right up and he was fine again. So, we fed him, and then 3 years later he died again. No one lives like that. It's always a solid stream. And it's interesting because that's how phone calls work. That's how any kind of asynchronous stream works. That, asynchronous means as I'm sending to you, you are sending to me too. It's a two-way. Both parties are required to be on the line in an asynchronous connection.
And that kind of circles back to what you're saying about crystals too, because our cell phones have crystals in them, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of them. A ton.
Yeah, it's funny that gentleman, the doctor, whoever it was criticizing crystals when we actually use them so much in our everyday technology.
Well, he's also telling everyone that they should get a Hep B shot as soon as they're born, and vitamin K, and
Yikes.
You don't need that placenta. So this is what we're dealing with. So not all doctors, but man, there's a lot of them like that.
Yeah, it's ironic that they would treat others like quacks and then go around doing things like that.
History of humanity right there, not just doctors. Everyone does that, including me.
And the topic of artificial intelligence, that's just so interesting, the idea of man possibly creating an intelligence or creating a life. What do you think? Is it even possible to create an artificial intelligence?
Well, you mean, is it possible to create like an artificial life? Because we already create artificial intelligence. There's kind of two different subjects there. The idea of like actually creating life is a really good question.
It's kind of a confusing area because you would think an artificial intelligence, it would be like code where if such and such happens, it will react in a predetermined way. Can we actually create something that actually has something resembling free will?
If free will exists, because only recently have I noticed that it might not exist, but if it does exist, then you are looking at consciousness as being this important factor, like this mana, something we have to pull from and then place it into. If you look at your body, our bones are an antenna. In fact, we are walking crosses. Our shoulders and our spine are a cross. It's a living cross. And we resonate a signal from somewhere. And that signal, it seems to be a consciousness that we are tuned into. 106.5 FM is the consciousness of KZ 106 in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And 96.2 is the frequency of Betty. She, works at the Dollar General and, drives a blue Ford. It could be that that's what consciousness is. It's just simply a variety of frequencies that people are tuned into. And it's weird to even hear myself say this. This is the first time I've actually said this out loud, but I'm not sure if free will is legit. I'm not sure if what we think, I'm just not sure. We have free will, but what I mean is that I don't know if it's quite the same. It could just be that if your adrenal system, if you're in like, sorry, let me put it this way. Back to artificial intelligence. If you could build an artificial intelligence that could render the entire endocrine system, your adrenals, your everything, your polyvagal nerve, the nerve that wraps around all of your organs, if you could render that in a computer where you could detect and simulate every chemical that's being produced, or every hormone, I should say, that's being produced, then I think you could probably create a human. And I think that I'm not a human, but you could create a body, and that body would actually react in the exact same way. If the copy was done right, then that body would react in the exact same way. And it makes me wonder if consciousness is not the same. Like if you think about telepathy, I think one of the almost mistakes that people make when they talk about telepathy is, well, yeah, I'm going to think about a color. Okay, I'm thinking about a color, Daniel. Now I'm sending it to you. And then you receive that color. I think it might not work that way. I think telepathy probably works more like, Daniel, my electromagnetic mind is vibrating at 33.674 megahertz. And it's at an oscillation attitude of, 6 degrees, X, Y, Z. And then if you could somehow do that also, that we would then have the exact same thought. We would have the exact same mental picture going on.
That sounds like kind of how it goes. I've had some experiences myself. That sounds like it might be right on the money.
Yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because none of us really have, when someone says, "Oh, that's a good idea, James," I'm more inclined to say, yes, it is, but I can't say that out loud because they're thinking that I'm implying that I'm taking credit for that. Like that same idea is, someone has that idea. Someone has that. There's too many of us. There's too many of us and not enough frequencies and that's why we see this kind of stuff happen all the time. They call it the 100th monkey, which actually I think they've actually sort of debunked that particular thing of it being a 100th monkey, but that concept was picked up again and easily proven with morphic resonance. Sheldrake talks about that, but not just him. That's now in mainstream that is how it works. Epigenetically, that's how it works, and that's why a spider can build a web. That's why a spider is born knowing, I know how to build a web. That's how a monarch butterfly knows. I live in Columbia on East 5th Street. Even though he's never been to Columbia, even though he was born in Detroit, he still knows that's where I'm going. And I think that knowledge could come back to him simply because he's morphically resonating, i.e. he's having that same electromagnetic pulse that's giving him a decision. It's giving him the adrenals to go, oh, yeah, I know where I live. And he's just, he just goes. It makes you question free will, because if you think about that, you're like, well, if that's true, then how do I know that that I have my own volition? And I think that's where meditation is important. That's where mastering your own will is crucial. I think that's where you find maybe that free will, if it exists.
Huh. I wonder if some of us have more free will than others.
Yeah, it seems like we would, because we are the sins of our fathers, but we also are the sins of our fathers, and we are the process that engulfs that. Like, we are the solution to that sin. And so, we're either gonna handle it well, or we're gonna be a automaton, and we just blindly go through, like George Bush Jr. You just kind of blindly just finish. Oh yeah, whatever. And it's so we each have our destiny, and that's the part of consciousness that I think is real. It's almost like actually, it's not almost like it. You're gonna have the ability to have these exact emotions based off your adrenals, and then you're gonna also have a clutch, and that clutch determines how much of that influence you're going to let drive your car versus how much you're going to let yourself drive your car. And maybe that's what free will is. In other words, all your decisions are predetermined if you choose to not be awake, if you choose to not intervene. Maybe that's really what free will is more.
James, have you had any paranormal experiences? Have you seen any UFOs perhaps?
I saw a triangle ship when I was in college. I was pretty stoned. It was like 7:30 at night. It was dark. I was playing guitar, and I looked up, and there was a very black, perfect triangle, and it waited for me to look, and then it left. And that's the only UFO I've ever seen. And then I've had two like really, really freaking twisted dreams that I feel like was more like a maybe I guess it could have been something like could not have been, I guess, but it sure seemed like it. I don't actually believe that UFOs are real, though. I do think that there's a real phenomenon out there, and I don't think people are making it up when they say that. But I think it's a different technology. It's the technology of demons. It's something I wrote about.
Yes,
I think it's an archetypal thing.
This is very interesting. I was kind of trying to segue into this, but this is so fascinating. You actually are drawing some major comparisons between demons and software.
Yes. Yes. I think that if you look back at the history of man seeing things in the sky, you're going to see that the UFOs started right after the rocket engine was invented. You can go back to Ezekiel, and you could see a wheel spinning within a wheel. But even those, I think, were nods to the chariot. In the steppe Mongolia, there was like a 3,000 people golden army seen floating in the clouds. And this was seen by like 50,000 people, like for like a month. It had assembled up in the clouds, this golden army. And then you have all the dragons, man. China is covered in dragons flying around, like, all through the history, just all these different dragons. And it's not just, it's very specific kinds of dragons, with different characteristics and things like that. And then if you look in the Vedas, oh my goodness, there's literally a god for everything. There's a god for picking your nose. There's a god for, getting the right black bean. There's just so many different spirits that are really meticulously documented and shown. And it seems to me that if you were to take all these phenomenon, they all meet one essential criteria. They're archetypal. Actually, it's more than one. They're archetypal, and we never find bodies. So they're archetypal, meaning that more than one person can have this experience, more than one person can describe something, more than one person can say, I saw a gray alien, or I saw a giant devil, or I saw a chupacabra, or I saw a Bigfoot, or I saw Loch Ness Monster, or I saw a fairy, or I saw a dragon. All these things are archetypal in our mind. We know they're archetypal because you can just say one word and it keywords it. You can say fairy and everyone's like, okay, I got it. I know what a fairy is. Those are archetypes, and they've been charged. They've been charged with the sigil, just like the eye in the pyramid. Just like all the magic that you've ever seen throughout the years. You're charging an entity, you're charging an archetype. And that archetype is something that lives in all of our minds. And so even though it is called a demon, I prefer the word ethereal, because I need us to stop having this gut reaction against it because of the word demon. You know, the word demon actually is daemon, and it's a term from Greece, and it just means divine inspiration. And in Linux, it's if you run like a server, you might use an operating system called Linux. And inside Linux,
oh, I love Linux.
Well, you know what a daemon is. A daemon is a process that you can start up, and that process can run in the background. And the Linux computer thinks that daemon is a real user. It thinks that it's, just like you or me, it's someone else at the keyboard doing things. And so it serves that daemon just like it would serve you as a person. It's just like the NPC. It's really funny. We make fun of the non-player characters now, the gray guy with the standard face. You can look at the NPC also as this daemon. It's an empty shell process. It's an automated car, It's a golf cart with no driver, but it's taking up room and it's playing the course. It's moving through things. Those are ethereals. Those are demons. And they've been through, because we are epigenetically, the sins of our fathers, because we evolve from our parents and we have these resonating code in our DNA. That code, not only can it build a spider's web, not only can it return home as a monarch butterfly, it also can charge itself based on something it learned maybe 1,000 years ago. These demons can still exist and be passed down from generation to generation. And more importantly, they can be weaponized. Black magicians can take these sigils, these archetypes, and rule an entire country or an entire world. And to rule that world, you would take some holly to make a black wand. You would take the wood of holly and you would create a cult of Diana. And in this town called Hollywood, you would create a circle, and in that circle, you would give everyone a ritual. And that ritual is a written script, and that script is a spell. And each person in the ritual comes into the circle in front of the camera and reads their spell. And if that spell is read correctly, with the right will and the right intentions behind it, and if all the tools of the spells are placed around it, and you have a single all-seeing eye, this lens that's pointed at this scene, and it's ingesting all of this magic and all the words that come back and forth, you create an illusion. You put someone in a trance. And for an hour and a half, people sit down in a theater in the dark, and the sticky Coke that's the sticky soft drinks that's created a sap on the floor, it makes your feet stick to it, and you're ingested in this dark ritual, and you're looking at a silver screen. Amazing silver is placed on a screen, and these pictures that you believe are real show deities that are larger than you. Their head is 20 times as big as yours is on this screen, and you sit there and you look at all their sigils, and they teach you more about different sigils. They teach you about ghosts and poltergeists and ETs, and they teach you everything that they can put in your mind. They charm you. And when you leave, you go home and you think it's done. But because you just saw The Exorcist, 15 years later, you're going to get pregnant and you're going to have a kid. And that kid has that sigil inside their brain. And there's nothing that they can do about it, except for find it.
You don't forget that movie.
And clean it up. And we don't notice that that's how it works. Like we don't understand that this is actually how it works. And that's why I think that this is an demons, ethereals. It's so advanced. It seems like it's an echo from a previous civilization, that a long time ago another civilization exists that understood these archetypes, and we just forgot, or the good guys forgot. Like all the good guys are walking around going, "Oh, I don't mess with demons. I don't mess with magic. I don't mess with ethereals," which is fine. That I'm going to get it, but if you do a wonderful painting, if you play the perfect song, if you do the perfect snowboard move, if you feel inspired and you do something really amazing, that inspiration is the exact same technology. It's the exact same ethereal technology. So it almost seems like maybe the key to us waking up is to empower ourselves again, to take over these sigils, to take responsibility for how this stuff works, how this technology affects us, and make it better. Stop just letting 5 companies decide what every sigil means and decide what every archetype means, because that's what's happening right now. That's how we're being programmed now.
Yeah, that is especially fascinating. You could draw a lot of comparisons to what you just talked about, the Illuminati sort of mind control, a lot of the stuff they do with the altar or monarch programming. It seems to be just exactly like you say. It definitely would explain a lot of those things that it can be hard to wrap your head around exactly how it works. Like we know that magic and things like that are related to words, but also it is really so much like a computer code as well. And you could really put something inside of somebody and then use the woman in the red dress to trigger a particular action.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of it that way, it just fits right along with what you're saying.
Yeah, those archetypes are, they're strong, and the older they go back into your family, the more powerful they're going to be. And that's why you look at the Virgin Mary as an archetype. You look at Jesus as an archetype. You look at any kind of idol as an archetype. You look at logos, and you really understand those are archetypes too. The logos are. It's so funny how trivial people think logos are, but those go way, way back. Different signs mean different things a long time ago, and people know that, and so they're riding the surf wave of the psychic energy that's inside of all of us that already fear the eye, for example, or that already react to a certain sigil in a very strong or a very weak way. If you start to look at like the human body is a living sigil, and that's why that's why what we look like, the charismatic attachment, the visual cortex, all that that's like direct. It's wired directly in to your triune brain, and so because of that, there's just a guttural reaction to it, and that's where the magic of sigils works. That's where, as you said, the lady in the red dress, especially in American culture, that's been charged over and over again. It's a lady in the red dress. That's built on. It's something that we pile on. We add more and more to it each time.
And even when an exorcism takes place, you could almost say that that's like an exorcist deleting the demon, like you would delete a odd bit of code or an entire program.
You're right to say that. However, just to clarify, I actually think an exorcism, even though it looks like it's doing that, it's doing the opposite. An exorcism is actually creating a living demon, like it's actually manifesting that, and it's using the child as a sacrifice to do that. it's convincing the child. All that, man, look at all the adrenaline running through that kid who thinks he's possessed, who thinks that there's a devil inside of him, who thinks that it's not that something isn't wrong with him, but it's that what he thinks is wrong with him is this eternal pit fire demon creature has risen up through the ass crack of the world and come out to pull him down into the fiery abyss. That is the sigil. That is the demon, is his belief of what that is. And so when you send in a priest and he buys that, he says, yes, that's what's happening. I'm going to exorcise it from you. He's literally creating a sigil. He's creating, in this case, a real life demon, like an ethereal that is a demon. He's creating that, and it wasn't there before. And everyone who's in contact with him, everyone who's in contact with the child, everyone who reads about it, everyone who remembers it, they're all creating that new demon too. So an exorcism is not a cleansing. It's the exact opposite. It's like hitting a 3D printer, you know? It's like hitting print. And it's like, yeah, we did it. we have a demon now. And that kid, he's never going to be the same. I mean, no one's going to be the same. In fact, look at what he gets to deal with. Oh yeah, that was Beelzebub came out of my mouth last week. You know, crazy stuff.
Yeah, definitely something there. It's almost like you have something going on with somebody, but once you get them believing that it's a demon, then it becomes one.
Yep. You know, there are things that terrify me in my life because of my own adrenals, meaning that, you know, like maybe some people might have a fetish or a fear or something, and, you know, like, so maybe someone doesn't like snakes or whatever. There are ways to cleanse that. There are ways to fix that. And it's sad that we don't do this in therapy. That it's one of the biggest problems I find with clinical therapy is that, I'm trying to think of a good example I can give you here, but you can replace, okay, let's say that you were in a bad relationship with someone and their name was Sue, okay? And it bothers you because anytime you meet someone named Sue or Susan, you're that sigil, or it's not really sigil in that case, but those words are charged with pain for you, okay? Because it's like, oh, and she hurt me so bad. It was so bad. You know, she did me so wrong. And you can, if you, a lot of what we do in society is we tend to like, oh, let's just walk away from it. Let's don't think about it. We do that with the N word, quote, quote, you know, we set off these little yellow cautionary signs and we think that is making it better, but that is making it so much worse because now you're creating a sacred bubble around that word Sue or around the N word or whatever word you want to talk about. And you're saying that is something we will never touch again. And so it's preserving it. It's putting it up on a pedestal. And what you could do instead with your archetypes, what you could do if you really wanted your free will, if you really understood how free will works, you would look at your endocrine system and you would say, how can I fix my endocrine system? And so if you say Sue and your endocrine system turns to acid, you need to fix that. So how do you fix that? It's no problem. All you have to do is recharge that sigil. Now, one way, which I don't recommend, it could be, but, you know, they say, well, you go have a rebound. You know, you meet someone else and you have a rebound. I think that's the exact same magic. It's like you're claiming your right to enjoy the other sex's body by having a rebound relationship with someone. You're recharging that sigil. You're trying to wipe the slate clean of the old person and have it with the new thing. So you could do that with a word too. If that word bothers you, for example, you could go bungee jumping and you could jump out, you know, and launch yourself. And as you're launching yourself, you know, you could be saying, you know, Sue, you could be screaming that. That's like a recharge of that sigil. You're creating a new endocrine algorithm for that word. And to me, that really is that's the heart of free will, is that, are you going to do that? Or are you just going to let the sigils remain as they are? Are you going to let them maintain their definition? Are you going to let someone else decide, here's what a poltergeist is, or here's what a banshee is, instead of you looking at it and going, well, what is a banshee? Just a period? Is it just a menstrual cycle? Like, is that really what it is? Because, here's this woman I love and she's, having this stuff. Is this what's going on? Like, you can recharge that. You can fix that. You don't have to look at it like, oh, it's a poltergeist is when a young girl gets sucked into a television set and, satanically eaten later or whatever. So you can recharge these things. It's our world. It's not theirs. We give it to them, but it doesn't have to be.
What about alien abductions? What do you suppose is going on there?
Fritz Springmeier, writer who writes about Illuminati, alter personality, the idea of turning someone into a robot, into an automaton. Just read this the other day, but one of the parts of someone is alien abduction part, and it's a way of programming in that someone's been alien abducted, and then you can access that sigil, that you can access that archetype later. The people that are being alien abducted right now, I do not think that aliens are doing it. I think that, actually, I know that there's a lot of targeted individuals that live life, and they are targeted by a lot of means. The Fort Lauderdale shooter was one. That guy was a veteran in good standing. Combat veteran, good with a gun, and he was convinced that the devil was talking to him. And the Parkland shooter, Cruz, said the same thing. I spent about a day looking at this, and I traced like 15 shooters across America that all said, I was hearing demon voices. And as you looked more in at those, one of them they're very specific. All these guys are saying someone is following me, and they're on the other side of this wall, and they've got this device, and they're aiming it at my genitals. And that, it sounds so nuts, right? You hear that, and you're like, that's crazy. And when you look on the other side of the wall, there's a motherfucking psycho with an electron gun, and he's shooting the guy's genitals. Like, that is what's happening. That is what's happening. The Fort Lauderdale shooter was listening to a technology called Voice of God, the ability to implant an electromagnetic sound inside of someone's head. Your skull is a parabola dish. It can pick up this stuff. It's not that hard to think about how this kind of technology would work. Taking all that to come back to UFO abductions, we are human cows on a farm, and the farmer takes some of us and does things to us. He harvests our CSF, he harvests our adrenochrome, he harvests our organs. We are on a human farm. 40% of our labor every Monday and every Tuesday belongs to someone else. You have no say-so over that. That is not a free country. We are on a human farm. I cannot stress that enough. And if you look at all the abductions and when they start, and if you can start to see a pattern forming, and you can extrapolate really easily. And you can say, if I had $21 trillion, what would I do with that? And you play around a lot with it, You definitely start some sigils and start some archetypes. You could start a gray archetype. If you had some technology that you were hiding, like if you had electrogravitics, if you could, make things levitate through, just spinning magnets, then you could fly around. And then if you could have that technology, it's really advanced. Maybe you can do things that you don't know. So you can genetically create things like we created a sheep about 30 years ago. So instead of a sheep, you might go, hey, let's make a droid. Let's make a biological droid. And you go, well, how are we going to do this? This is a lot of work. So, you go, well, we don't need it to reproduce. So it doesn't need a schlong. It needs no genitals at all. So now you've got a smooth body alien. You don't want it bigger than you in case it malfunctions. So now you've got a humanoid that's not as tall as a human, so it's a little bit smaller, right? But it needs fingers and thumb because it needs to pick stuff up, and go get a pizza or whatever. So it's going to look like you. It's going to be bipedal. it'd be great if you didn't have to feed it. So if it had some kind of photosynthetic skin, like some kind of slimy frog-like skin, you could just charge it with a grow light. You wouldn't have to worry about giving it a digestive system, or it wouldn't need that stuff. It could just live straight off the light. And then you need some kind of antenna, something that you can control it remotely. So you'd probably want to give it a nice big thick head so it could store, some way that you can control it. And then basically you've got a drone that's it's a biological walking drone. And that drone could be powered by AI, or it could be powered by, someone sitting in a drone seat. And I think if you add these things up, and keep in mind you've got 21 trillion. So it's not like I'm reaching here. I mean, you've got 21 trillion. You can make a lot of stuff. There's a lot of genes out there. There's a lot of different things you can try and splice and things like that. It would be really easy to build that all together and then turn that into a human trafficking program. No one is going to listen to the guy that's swearing up and down, "There's someone shooting me in the genitals with a ray gun." Like, it's the perfect cover. No one's going to take that seriously. So that's my best guess. Do I know for sure? No. Do I believe experience is the ultimate arbiter of truth? Yes. Which means that if someone has encountered an alien and they feel like that alien is a sentient being from another galaxy, I think their truth trumps mine because they experienced that. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to be the one that's going to fall for this idea that this reptilian space pope has landed and he's here to tell you that you're bad and that you've ruined the environment. And so because of that, we're going to take over. And so we need you to drop your guard, and all this thought of free will is just your ego. And it's time for you to ascend. And the only way you can ascend is you need to understand that you are not an enlightened being like Frederick over here, the reptilian space pope. He's the one that's going to show you what to do. And he's just, he's one alien, so he's going to delegate. And he picked us. That's all. We're the guys that he's going to tell, and then we're going to tell you what he says. What's wrong with that? And all of us are going to be like, "Yeah, that sounds great," And it's so that's my biggest fear, and that's why I look at this, all the alien stuff that's happening. To me, that's the Occam's razor, is that it seems more like that's what we're seeing happening. It's human trafficking.
It also makes you wonder about a lot of what people would refer to as predictive programming, ironically, where you see certain things happen in movies and music, especially album covers and comic books and stuff like that. And then in the future, it could be 20 years later, something very, very similar actually happens. It makes me wonder if that falls into what you were talking about earlier about charging sigils and these repeating archetypes, and maybe the predictive programming is actually causing these things to happen.
Yeah, I think so for sure. When I look at 9/11, I think David Rockefeller did that. I think that he turned the island of Manhattan into a ritual circle. The island is surrounded in water, so you've already got a circle. And then Masons, like, the master's carpet is where they perform their ritual. And the grid of New York, of Manhattan, is a natural checkerboard of streets and grids. So you've got the Masonic symbol of the checkerboard too. And you've got these twin towers. You've got this symbol that is such a powerful archetype. It goes way, 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 way back. And I look at David Rockefeller, who gave the Rockefellers gave the land for the Twin Towers and the UN. And I picture this guy being a master magician, and his name being David. There's I can't prove this, but John D. Rockefeller really makes me think a lot about Sir John Dee, the magician who served in the Queen's court. Both of them have this same idea of black magic using as a tool to rule people. And so when I look at David Rockefeller, I see him as being this golden child the Star of David, the Star Child of his clan, of his family, of his bloodline, and him seeing his life as a living archetype of the Antichrist. And so he grabbed hold of his life and decided that he was here to commit the most atrocious evil that he could possibly commit. He was trying to secure the title of Satan by doing something so awful that it would outshine anything that had happened before and anything that might happen after. And that's why if you look in the World Trade Center, there's these fires that broke out on 9/11 one year. There's a lot of weird coincidences where things are trying to happen in that building, and as you just trace back and look at that, it seems like what it seems to me is that David Rockefeller controlled a mass world cult of magicians that were getting off, like they had a sexual fetish, getting off murdering people and just being diabolical, and that they were each playing off each other to see how can we make this worse. And that's why 9/11 itself was a pillage, like in the traditional sense. That date was announced. I think invitations were sent, like probably word of mouth, but I think in the elite there was like an invitation sent saying, hey, we invite you to come to Manhattan on 9/11 to participate in the rape and pillage of America. And that's why you have Silverstein making $2 to $4 billion off the whole deal. That's why you have an entire 4 floors dedicated to a law firm of Sidley Austin, and not one of them showing up to work that day on 9/11. That's why you have, what was it, 2.1 trillion that disappeared on the Pentagon the day before. That's why you have the world's most expensive, advanced air defense system that's ever been assembled in our known history being foiled by 16 box cutters. The entire thing was a satanic ritual, and it was here to charge all of these sigils and to make David Rockefeller the new king of evil, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if he called himself Satan, because I don't know how he particularly felt, but he wanted that title, and boy, he sure grabbed it, But as we uncover more evil, I think we're going to find out that actually that was nothing. There was a lot of here, hold my beer kind of stuff, because it looks like all the history that we've been told is not even correct, So who knows what other stuff happened, as far as the evil stick goes.
James, have you ever tried any psychedelic drugs?
Yes, I have. Peyote was interesting. LSD and mushrooms and actually, I think that's it. Yeah, that's probably it. Those are probably the only drugs I have done has been hallucinogenic. I've never done cocaine, never had any interest to it. Not really big on alcohol. And I would do mescaline if I could. Carlos Castaneda, I think, is an amazing writer, and I think there's some interesting things that he has to say about plants and allies and whatnot. What about you?
Yeah, I've tried those and a few others. Same thing with me. Never got into hard drugs. Never even really tried them. But I definitely, I suppose they might have connected me with certain lines of thought and opened me up to more possibilities and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like there's something going on there, because a lot of people do experience demons while they're on psychedelic substances, and in fact they'll even tell you, well, you need to have a shaman with you to keep an eye on you and
Yep.
use trinkets and fetishes and things like that in order to protect you from these demons that you're going to encounter once you enter into that state.
Yeah. In ayahuasca, a lot of people I haven't done ayahuasca, but a good friend of mine, he's done it quite a bit. I think those are portals for sure, and there's so much sociopathy around drugs. Like there's the moment you have a bottleneck where here's a substance and it is quote unquote magical, it has these properties that's really special. The moment you have a bottleneck, it automatically kind of taints what's going on. Sharks kind of come around and turns into this control thing, like who's the candy man, who's the bearer of the wisdom mushroom or whatever. And so because of that, I really haven't delved that much into it. Like I've done it enough to experiment and to see, okay, wow, my consciousness could be expanded this way, or it could be this or that way. But I really haven't been in that kick in a long time. I really like my lucid conscious moments more now. I feel like they're more productive, I guess. It could just be age or you kind of go into a phase and then you come out the other side too. But I'm worried about that, the energy that comes around because it's legal, because there's a bottleneck there. A lot of times you see some kind of bad mojo that surrounds it, and that's why I'm worried about, like, well, you need a shaman. The second you tell someone you need a shaman, you're also sort of you're wounding that person. You're telling them you need a shaman, so you're creating this kind of codependency thing that's happening as they're entering into an experience with something, where what you really need to be telling them is, instead of you the man, you need to be like, you the shaman, man, you the shaman. Like, you got this. Like, that's what needs to happen. Not, you are not wise enough to pass the sacred branch until, like the opposite of that. You want the opposite. At least that's how I look at it.
Are we in the end of days?
That's a good question. I think if something bad's going to happen, it won't happen all over the world, whatever the world is. I think it's probably not the best. America's probably not the best place to be. Like if something bad was to happen, I think it would be in America. That makes the most sense to me. But would it be like, is there something bigger than that that's going to happen? I don't know. It could, but it almost seems futile to even think about it. I more would rather focus on what would the psychopaths do, because that's something we could like stop. So if you mean end of days and the psychopaths, having a 9/11 but much bigger, yeah, that maybe that could happen. But I don't know about the other stuff, because I guess when I hear that, it makes me think about the deluge that happened, like 13,000 years ago, I guess. Like what caused that? Who caused that? If it was a who, what, why was that caused? That's going to happen again. So I guess we will have an end of days eventually.
Yeah, that's a good point, because supposedly there were a lot of the same things going on. These sorcerers using magic and programming and maybe even crystals and things like that, or maybe that's Atlantis, but something was being abused.
Well, but I don't know if it was abused, but like the story says something was being abused. But we just have to remember that psychopaths have they write every bit of history that we read, religious, academic, all of that. Every word is written by a psychopath, or is commissioned by a psychopath. It's so important that we remember that. And so when I look back at shame, whenever you look at like ancient shame and how that gets transferred over, I more see, well, that's just a psychopath talking. Like so I don't even know if the stories that we hear about that are necessarily true. To me, I'd rather look at what can I directly experience, and then derive what truth I can from that. And that's why I'm talking about this technology of demons, because when you look at mental health, you can see this technology in place. And I think it's sort of, you start to unravel the signature, what the actual signature is. And there's definitely been an evil hand that's been at play for a long, long time. But I personally don't think that evil hand is like an accident. Like, I don't look at the world as like, oh, darn, God let a bad guy get through, and now it's all screwed up. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if that was the case, then God isn't really like a God. God was more like you and me, and we have an ant farm, and we came home from school with our ant farm, and we wanted to seed that ant farm, so we put a bunch of black ants in there, and accidentally a red ant got in there too, and it just, oh man, came back, and now the red ant's ruling all the black ants. Like, if that's the God, then that person isn't a God. He's more like you and me, just a lot bigger and a lot smarter, like it's just someone that's just sort of like, oh, red ant got in there. So even if that is what's going to happen, it's kind of futile to even think about it. And that doesn't sound like God. It sounds more like a kid with an ant farm.
Do you have any favorite authors or heroes or anybody that you look up to in like the conspiracy paranormal field?
I don't like to have heroes. I think heroes are dangerous. And then when you meet your hero, it's like such a kick in the face when you meet a hero, because it's almost, a hero is an archetype. And so, like, Berkeley Breathed is probably the last hero I had. He's a cartoonist, draws a cartoon called Bloom County, and it's just really amazing artist. And like, I consider him a hero. And then as I kind of traced him down on the internet and started to see who he was as a person and how he responded to people, I realized, oh, that is not a hero at all. Like, I liked him better when I didn't know who he was. I liked him better when I had the archetype, of who he was. Plus, when you think about a hero, you're the person that's not the hero, because you're thinking about a hero. And this is my movie right now. And so I need to be that hero. And so I'd rather just, figure out what I can solve, what I can do. But when it comes to truth, and chasing the truth down, I have heroes every day that they challenge me. They say things that I didn't think about, or they refute something I say, or they tell me something I just hadn't considered. I think that's probably the closest to, who I look up to. I really look up to people that do that. And it doesn't matter who that is. It doesn't matter what their track record was the day before, So that's what I look up to more, is that I can't go to a store and buy feedback. I can only come to Twitter or do a radio show or write an article or write a book and wait for people to respond to it, and then take that and do something with that. So that feedback is something that I look up to a lot. That would be something that, let me put it this way. If you're looking for who you think knows what's happening in the world, and let's say you're on Twitter, look at how many people they follow. And that tells you a lot about what they're willing to consider, where they consider their information, if at all. Like, and I'm not saying that's foolproof, it always works, but that's an example of what I mean. My hero in the truth community is not going to be someone that knows the truth about something. It's more about someone that's like, well, James, your theory fit this, this, and this, and this, but it failed on this. And because of that, maybe this is better. That to me is more of what I look up to. And that's not even like individual, that's more of like a nebulous thing that happens. That's why I love Twitter. You're entering a nebulous pool of information. And as soon as someone gives me an idea, I don't even know 5 minutes later who that was. It's like you're verifying purely on the merit of what you've been told. You're not assigning it to, well, this is a PhD from Stanford, or this is a this from this, or this is a that from that. Because one thing you learn on Twitter, like with the doctor, you're talking to a guy that's a doctor and doesn't know that crystals are in his own cell phone. Like, he doesn't even know that. So you get to dismiss this whole, well, what are the credentialing? What is the expert status? And you just more about, well, what do you got? Do you have a sandwich of an idea here or not? And that's more of the value. So I think I look up more to that.
Yeah, you don't really have to have a degree or be a perceived authority on any subject to understand it or wrap your head around it. I'm a firm believer that anybody can understand anything eventually.
I think if you find yourself around people that say, well, you have to be this smart to understand it, I think they're lying to you. And I think if you look at rocket science, look at the stigmata that's been placed, and that's another magical thing if you think about it, because the phrase rocket science has been charged as something that's really hard. And to me, that's really what exposes that it's a fraud, is that you have all these same media companies that are insinuating and just beating it into you over and over again. Rocket science is hard. Rocket science is hard. That's why when you start to question, well, what are you pushing against in a vacuum, dude? Like, how is spitting something out the back going to propel you forward if you're spitting something out the back and there's nothing, like, it's just a negative pressure there? But because they're a rocket scientist, you're more like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to ask you because you're a rocket scientist. Yeah. And I'm not. Like, that gives it away right there. And experts are the worst. Experts is what's wrong with this world, is we have this myth that there's something called an expert out there and that you just wouldn't understand, That's why we're told, you're spending 10 times the speed of sound. We're told that, and we're just like, yeah, it must be true because I'm not a theoretical physicist. So it must be true. And that's what's making us slaves, is that we are assuming there's an expert out there. Like, I don't know if it's bad that Monsanto's doing this, but the EPA, they do. They're the expert, or the president, or whatever senator. It's this giving up of consciousness to authority to fall into the trance of the expert. It's probably the most dangerous thing that's happening to us right now.
Do you believe in God?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's not a God that gets involved. Like, I volunteer to do animal rescue stuff. It's rewarding work, but it's hard work because you like, your goal is to not be seen. If you want to really help an animal, you don't want the animal to even know who you are. You don't want them to entrain on you. You don't want them to imprint on you. You don't want them to look at you as a source of food or health or warmth or anything. You want them, a successful animal rescue is an animal that you let go, and that animal was the same as it was before it was injured. Like, that's what makes it a success. If you rescue a deer and then you raise it, and now this deer is like your dog or something, you didn't rescue that animal. You enslaved that animal. And it might be, well, you treated it really great, but that's not an animal anymore. Now it's a dependent creature that relies on you. Now, your ego, your personal life may love that. And sure, if that's where you want to go, but that's not what a God would do. That's not what God would do. I think our God is smarter than that. I think he's like an animal rescuer times a million, or times a billion, bazillion, whatever. He's doing that, but so much more. And that's why when I look back at religious history and I look at people worshiping relics and they won't even admit that they're relics. But any kind of charm, any kind of object, any kind of book, any kind of writing is a relic. It's a form of idolatry. And I can't imagine God being so flawed to think that a book would work. Like, let's say we go back to the ant farm, and there's all these black ants, and then we got that one red ant in there, and the red ant's just terrorizing everybody. If we're pretending that that's what happened, then it would make sense that then we would also pretend that, well, now we're going to inject a little tiny book, and those ants are going to read this book, and it's going to fix everything. And it goes back to that whole idea of, well, first we'll apply a mouse, and then we'll apply a cat, then we'll apply a dog, and then we'll apply a wolf, and then we'll apply, it's none of those sound like something that God would do. And so when I look at the universe, and I look at this amazing place, and I think about God, God isn't having a son, a child, and then that child's coming down and being murdered. And then every single person that's born after that murder is being told, hey man, God's son died because of you. Like, I don't think that that's what's happening at all. I think that's a shame cult. I think that's telling someone, you owe a life debt to someone else before you were even born because of how awful or foul or sinful or broken you are. Man, God's son had to die because of you. Do you know how cool that guy was? He was the coolest guy around, and he had to die because of you. It's such a mind fuck. And when I grew up, when I was told that growing up, that's what led me down my own path of like, what the fuckness? Like, just walking around permanently like, there's no way this can be right, guys. There's no way that this can be how it works. There's just no freaking way. And then it doesn't matter how many times you say that. I was a truther at 5 saying that. Because either I was told, well, there's a little bit of devil in you. We need to get that out of you. Or, well, that's what Satan would say. Or, well, you just don't understand. You don't understand how much God loves you. He loves you so much that he gave his only son. And not once did anyone hear me growing up, because I would tell them, but I didn't have a choice. I would have much rather, if this is a choice, then please just let me die. I didn't even ask to be here. So why am I being born into this as a debt? Why am I stepping off the train and the second I get off the train, I'm being handed a bill that says, look, man, for you to be here, God's only son had to die. So I don't believe in that, but I definitely believe in God. I think I'm talking to him right now. I think God is everything. It's literally every single knob, button, key, press, thought, everything.
Do you listen to music, and if so, who do you like?
I've been writing like crazy so much, and because of the writing, the music hasn't been as big of a part of my life as it used to be. It used to be huge. I'm surrounded with every instrument that I can think of around me. I'd love to play music. Really enjoy just kind of, I would say classical guitar would be probably the instrument I play the most, or enjoy the most. And so,
a nylon string.
I'm just kind of playing stuff, What was that?
Oh, a nylon string.
Yeah. I really love the acoustics, the texture of that is just beautiful. If I could play anything, I think after all these years of trying all these different instruments, I think like a Spanish guitar, it's got like a wider fret board. And I think I would really enjoy that because I don't play fluid enough every single day, where I just think that would be the ideal instrument. But right now, I've just got a regular classical and acoustic and electric and my piano and stuff. What about you?
I'm kind of the same. I have a collection of instruments. I have one classical guitar, but it's not a not a Spanish classical guitar. It's just a cheaper Ibanez model that I picked up from the Guitar Center, but it sounds pretty good to me. I'm sure it doesn't sound quite as smooth and articulate and plucky and beautiful as an actual guitar imported from Spain, which like you, I do hope to actually possess and own one of these days.
Yeah, and I don't even think it has to be from Spain. I mean, guitars are really well made now. But the flamenco guitar I'm talking about, it's just apparently the fretboard is just a lot wider, and so there's just more room to play in your fingerings and stuff. And I've just noticed that my fingers are a little bit too stubby for my liking, and it would probably be a better instrument, versus say like a mandolin or something. I do have a mandolin, but man, those things are annoying to tune. And then to try and get your fingers in the middle and those tiny strings is takes a lot more practice than I'm willing to give it. So
yeah, that's kind of my. I'm the same as you. I've kind of grown out of the psychedelic drug sort of thing, but music is kind of the way that I alter my own consciousness nowadays.
yeah, that's a great way of putting it. It really is. That's the perfect way of putting it. It definitely alters your consciousness for sure. When I grew up, I actually talked about, I haven't even mentioned my book, but I wrote a book. It just came out in October. And I was in, and this is going to sound kind of cheesy or corny, but just hear me out. I was in a boys' choir, and we traveled all over the world. And part of that traveling meant that I sang in the Sistine Chapel, I sang in Notre Dame, I sang with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I was allowed into these really big halls. And I was one of the people that got to fill my voice in that experience, and the experience of being inside St. Paul's Cathedral, for example, and singing, and being a part of this archetypal, ancient, historic calling, through song that really is the most transcendental thing I think that's probably ever happened to me. Is having that relationship with music. If music doesn't prove that there's a God, I don't know what else would. There's no reason for music. There's not an intrinsic, well, if it wasn't for music, it's not like a gallbladder, although maybe you don't need a gallbladder, but you know what I mean? It's this thing that's just so esoterically beautiful. It doesn't really have a flat purpose, it has a greater, it's more of a harmonic, but also, music is magic too. If you pluck a string and then you pluck a string halfway, those are two different notes. Those are actually octaves of each other. And if you play one string and then you play another string, the third string you're going to hear sympathetically. It's going to resonate. You're going to hear a note, but you didn't actually play it. And that truly is the magic of magic. Magic is an energy, a frequency, and a vibration. And that's exactly what music is. And you can create with magic just like you can create with music. You can play two tones, but if they're the right two tones, they resonate and they create a third tone that wasn't there before. And realistically, that's exactly what a magic spell is. That's exactly what a command is. It's in your mind, you visualize, I would like for my dog to sit. And then you say, hey, dog, sit. And then in the real world, if you have the right energy, frequency, and vibration, the dog sits. And that, that's a magic spell. It happened with an energy, a frequency, and a vibration. That's how the world works.
James, what's ahead? Any plans for the future? Where do you see this all going?
I am about 20,000 words into my next novel. It's the satellite one I was talking about. And I want to finish that, hopefully this winter. My ultimate dream would actually, I want to have a campground. I think that would be the perfect palette, is if I owned a campground. And in that campground, I had a little computer lab. I think I could teach, because I'm getting older, I think I'd be good at teaching kids about artificial intelligence or about programming. And I could see this place where people come in the summer and they kind of do this intensive campground experience where you're learning code during the day, and then, you're just out on this campground and doing a lot of art and stuff. I do sculpture with bamboo, like large format sculpture and stuff. And it'd be really cool to have an outdoor palette that I could just keep building stuff and keep interacting with people, keep pushing our advancement, our liberation. I think if I had a campground, you could sort of create this sort of psyop bunker, like anti-psyop bunker, where people could come and just kind of remember other things, like the power of a campfire. It's such a powerful sigil. It's a campfire. We should all be around campfire all the time, and we're not. We rarely ever see one. And if I had a campground, it would be about the fire. It would be a big ceremony, every night where the fire is a part of that. I used to work in a wilderness camp for kids, and I really just saw how powerful this magic is. This land, this sacred place of setting up something like that. So I think if I could do anything, it would be to get there. And in order to get there, I'm working on my second book now. I've got some patrons that are helping me with my writing. The column's going really well. I started this free column last year where I'm writing about these kind of things, and I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. I'm doing what you're doing. I'm doing what we see people do all the time out there, is just exploring, trying to figure out what the heck's going on, and trying to figure out what we can do to help each other to stop being so victimized by this system. We shouldn't be paying 40% income taxes. We should have a voluntary federal government. We should have bioregions, not states. We can change government from a coercive-based government to a compassion-based government. And I want us to get there in my lifetime. I want to see progress. I don't want to die and be another fool that let 9/11 happen, and let JFK die, and let the Gulf of Tonkin happen, and let the USS Liberty happen. I want us to take control of our own destiny and stop letting this trauma abuse rule over us.
And this does bring us to the end of the interview, but I wanted to go ahead and ask you if you wanted to plug your website and Twitter and anything else.
Yeah, that'd be great. Guys, I have a free website. My name's James True. True is in false. And if you go to jtrue.com, you'll find my website. You might have to hit HTTPS, I guess. It's weird. But anyway, see if you can find me there, or you can find me on Twitter at Jarue, Jarue 369. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I use Twitter to pull my ideas from people, and it's probably been the thing that helps my writing the most. I've got a free subscribe to my mailing list. It'd be great to keep in touch with people. And let me know what you think about my columns. React to them. Tell me I'm an idiot, or tell me I made you think. And buy a book. That'd be great. My book, The Spell of Six Dragons, is out. It talks about psychopathy, but it's also a literary journey through some really fun times. There's a Mexican prostitute story in there. There's a choir board story going around the world in there. There's all kinds of cool stories that I think you guys will find it enjoyable if you give it a chance. And that's about it.
Love it. Well, James, so great having you on the show this evening. It's so different than any of my other guests, and so fascinating. And I would definitely love to touch bases with you in the future and do this again and get up to date with you.
That'd be fantastic. Thanks for helping me get better at podcasting. I hope it was stimulating for people, for your listeners.
Yeah, I got a good 2 hours of practice in the hole.
Right on.
All right, James, thank you once again. I will talk to you again in the future, and you have a good night, my friend.
You too, friend. See you around Twitter. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
And there you have it. That was James True. Wow. Where do I even start with that one? My God. Well, I'm going to start by taking a break. I'm going to play you some tunes, and head outside and visit the bushes like I always do. Ooh, hiccuped right there. And we will we will head into our final hour, the after show. Some of you really love this part of the show. Some of you hate it, but we're going to do it. So stay tuned. And welcome back to the end of days. This is your host, Daniel, returning from a very, very relaxing break. I do have to do that, I need to catch my breath. I need to give my vocal cords a rest. I need to eat something. I didn't really need to eat something this time because I totally pigged out before I started the show. I cooked some turkey burgers, added some spicy teriyaki sauce, my own little concoction, cooked up some rice and made some steamed vegetables. Oh, so good. I know I'm probably boring you to tears talking about the dinner I cooked today, but oh, it was so good. I can still taste those carrots. That cauliflower. Oh man, there's so much going on in the world. Lately, I've been doing a show every 2 weeks. This after talking on and on about how I wanted to do a show every other day or daily. Not gonna happen. Well, it's not that easy, especially when you are a normal person like me who works a full-time job. The idea of doing a podcast every day, that's a challenge. That is a challenge. Maybe if I someday actually get paid to do this, I'll be more than happy to do this as my full-time job. But otherwise, I'm just going to aim for the standard one show a week. I think a 3 to 5 hour show once a week is more than enough. I'm sure that's more than enough, Daniel, for many of you out there. But you can catch me in other ways too. Remember, you can always follow me on Twitter. I try to at least tweet daily. I might not be able to do a show daily, but I try to at least tweet daily. If you want to enjoy my trolling about certain topics, such as flat Earth or how aliens are fake. Speaking of which, I did want to touch on that a little bit. As many of you know, I used to be a great believer in aliens. I used to be really, really into the whole aliens thing. I knew everything about reptilians. I knew everything about Nordic aliens. I knew everything about the Greys. Not everything, but I was pretty well studied for a guy like myself, especially I had a lot of this knowledge when I was just in my late 20s, and I've accumulated so much knowledge on the topic. But at some point, I'll tell you when it kind of got started. You guys know Todd, right? Hey there, buddy. You know that guy. Well, we used to always get in these little sort of debates about whether or not aliens were real. I was always talking about aliens. Oh, it's aliens behind it all. It's aliens. The reptilians. The Draconian Alliance. The Draconian Syndicate. Draconians from Alpha Draconis. With big leathery wings, 14 foot tall. They eat humans, you know, all that mumbo jumbo. I was super into it. And I was always trying to tell him how these reptilians were behind everything, and we got to get ready to fight some reptilians. We got to do something. But Todd would always say, no, that's disinformation. It's actually the Illuminati that are putting this information out there. And I would give all the usual arguments. Oh, that's preposterous. Look how many stars are in the sky. It just goes on and on. How could there not be aliens? But, you know, the more and more I had these conversations with my buddy Todd, and the more I sat there and thought about it, the more I just started to ask the hard questions. Like, what do we really have to go on? I myself, I've seen a UFO. You know, I've told this story a million times. I saw the triangle craft, saw UFOs a few other times. But all I saw was a UFO. I did not see any little green men. I did not see any 14-foot tall reptilians. I didn't even see a damn Nordic alien. I would love to see a big-breasted, elf-eared, blonde, blue-eyed, sparkling female Nordic alien. I would love to see that shit. I'd just be like, yeah, yes, just stand there. I'm gonna pleasure myself to your big alien chest. No, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Calm down. I'm joking. But you guys know what I mean. I mean, I would love to see an alien. But even during my UFO experience, as many of you know this story, when the UFO approached me and got close to me, I got very fearful. I became very panicked, and I started praying, basically. I started saying things like, oh, get away from me by the blood of Christ. That's what you're supposed to say when you're having these alien issues. You're supposed to say something of that nature. But when I did do that, the UFO kind of backed off. I sort of made up my own reasons why that happened. I would say, well, that's just the aliens. They knew I was afraid and they didn't want to scare me and give me a heart attack. Or it's an archetype. These archetypes are powerful. They strengthen your natural defenses, etc., etc. But it's always kind of in the back of my head because I was always told that to stop a haunting or a demonic encounter or an alien abduction, you call out to Christ for whatever reason that is, and it'll stop that experience. And I just kind of used it as a fallback because I was scared and I would do anything to bring that situation to an end. And that's just one thing. I mean, I'm not a religious person. Not in any way. I'm not a religious person. I don't go to church. I don't even read the Bible. Sometimes I'll look up Bible quotes online, passages from Revelation, stuff like that. But I'm not a religious guy. Not at all. I'm not religious. I don't push religion. I don't tell you you're going to go to hell unless you accept Jesus or anything like that. I'm not like that. I never was, and I'm still not. But like I was saying, I had to ask myself the hard questions. What do we really have to go on with all this alien mumbo-jumbo? We have some personal testimonies, some really blurry, grainy videos that really could be anything and probably are just us. It's probably black ops, black budget stuff. We have these gray aliens that are conveniently the right size, something that James was kind of talking about earlier. They have hands to work tools, and they seem to be able to breathe the same air as us. If aliens evolved on another planet, they'd look like spiders or octopuses. They wouldn't look like little green humanoids. They look too much like us. They look like things out of Star Trek or Star Wars. They don't look like something that evolved on another planet. And then you look at all this space stuff. It all looks fake. It looks like CGI. There's no water on any of their... Sorry. There's no water on any of the other planets out there. I'm getting fired up, that's all. There's no water. Where's the water? Why isn't there water? Why is there only water here? And they're always coming out with, oh, we found some water on Mars. We found some water on the moon. Look there. Some came out of the ground. It was there for a second, and then it went away. You're always hearing stuff like that. But why does it seem like we're really the only planet with water? Big infinite, the same argument. Big infinite universe out there. so many stars in the sky. It just goes on and on and on. The only reason we haven't run into any aliens is because the universe is so vast. They're just out of reach. They're always out of reach. Something's wrong with that. Why are they always out of reach? All we get is a bunch of goofy CGI. And then we send up a space probe and it shoots into the high atmosphere and off into space, and it travels thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of miles away, and then it hits the gravitational field of Jupiter, and it spins around halfway and takes a bunch of really high quality CGI pictures, and then it gets slingshot. It acts like a slingshot, and it leaves the orbit of Jupiter because we fired it just right. We did the math and we fired it just right. And now it's headed to Saturn. It's traveling to Saturn. And then it gets to Saturn and it takes a bunch of high quality CGI pictures. Oh, wow. We planned that out so well. It's just like a huge game of pool where we can time our shots. It just sounds so unbelievable. You know, you add all this stuff up. All the NASA fakery, you know, the flat earth material, whether it's flat or not. But it just all kind of comes together. And you start asking yourself, are there really any aliens? Was this just all fake? If you look at William Cooper, he said very early on, before all this alien stuff was going on, he said that they were doing this. They were releasing false information about aliens and UFOs. They're trying to create a false bad guy or create a fake alien invasion in the future. Something like that. They have their reasons. But William Cooper was saying this back before we had the David Icke and the reptilians and stuff like that. And then you could look at the David Icke material and you see that it's a lot of his early work were published by the Lucis Trust and connected to all these, various Illuminati vectors and stuff like that. Alice Bailey, the Lucis Trust. And you keep making these connections, you keep looking into it, and you see the documentation and the evidence that the shadow government, the Illuminati, they have been doing this. They have been purposely releasing disinformation in order to kind of fool everybody. So I believe that, the more and more deeper you look into this alien thing, the more you get frustrated because you never really get any solid information about these aliens or what their planet's like, what their species is like. It's all a bunch of channeled information, eyewitness testimonies. There's no real proof or evidence. There just isn't. They say, oh, it's the math. There's so many stars out there. Daniel, you retard. How could you not believe in aliens? And then you look at this ancient alien stuff. It's just so pathetic. It's like, oh, look at this tale from ancient Sumer where this god, he was riding a bird. And of course, according to the ancient aliens weirdos, they say the bird actually means spacecraft. It's a UFO. It has to be, right? Because who would ride an actual bird? Of course, it's some sort of Flash Gordon jet bike or something like that, right? Of course it is, right? And he's throwing lightning at bad guys. Oh, well, he wasn't throwing lightning. He was, of course, shooting some kind of laser gun. It's some sort of technology. I mean, it's a stretch. It's a stretch of the imagination. It's a twist. We have to reach very deep in order to make these connections. I'm sorry, but if there were aliens on this planet in the past, we'd have something. We'd have some kind of device. We'd have some clear-cut diagrams and pictures on old walls, murals. We'd have some very direct sort of evidence to support this. And we'd be able to learn about the aliens and their culture and where they came from. But there weren't any aliens. There may have been entities, there probably were. In every culture, there's things like demons and gods and things like that. Sure. But flesh and blood, nuts and bolts aliens from other planets? Nah. I just don't see that. It's illogical. I'm using science here. I'm not just pulling this out of my buttocks. I'm actually using science and logic to deduce and discern. And I'm sorry if that offends anybody out there. A lot of people out there, they believe that they are alien hybrids, or oh, I'm not an alien. It's only my soul that's an alien. I'm an alien on the inside. Okay, well, if you're an alien on the inside, that's convenient, right? Because that's a part of you that we can't really see, we can't test, we can't confirm it. It's just sort of inside you somewhere, and we got to kind of take your word for it, right? Kind of like the channeling thing. And I know that's annoying when a guy like me plays skeptic about topics like this. I know that's kind of insulting, etc., but I'm just being honest of what I believe. I gotta be real. I can't be like one of these guys on terrestrial radio, George Norrie, who's just, pushing this stuff because he's supposed to, because it makes him money or whatever. I'm not gonna just push this. I mean, I'll still have the alien people on the show. Why not? I mean, what they're talking about, that these things are happening to people. It might be some kind of demonic deception, or it might be Illuminati type of stuff. It might be their own delusions, but it is happening to them in some form or another. So I'm still going to touch on that stuff. It's still a piece of the puzzle, and I don't know everything, of course. I could be wrong about this. I don't think I am, though. But, I'm still going to... I'll still talk to the reptilian people and people like that. I'm not going to just talk to flat earth Christians or anything like that, so don't worry. We'll still cover all the same stuff. I might be a little bit more picky about who I bring on the show. I mean, if it just is obviously not true, then why would I spend time or spend your guys' time on that? Which I'm sure you can totally vibe with. I try to only cover things that are true, and there is something to things like the alien love bite and this reptilian phenomena. I just don't believe they're reptilians. I believe they're like some kind of demonic, archonic entities of some kind. They're tricksters. Like these demons, they're deceivers, they're deceptive. Lucifer's the prince of lies, right? He really knows how to get in y'all heads and get things twisted in your mind. And I do believe in God, and I do believe in the devil. I'm sorry if that makes me seem ignorant to some of you out there. I've just really been around the block, and I've been very anti-Christianity and anti-belief in God or belief in the devil for probably the vast majority of my life. But I'm not born again or anything like that. I'm not going to start going to church. I'm not going to pop open a Bible. But it's like, once I started just believing in God again, it's like all the mumbo jumbo and all the chasing my tail and all of the confusion and it's like it just stopped, and I sort of just, this feeling of peace and happiness kind of came over me. Just this feeling like all of a sudden I'm right as rain and things kind of make sense. Things have come full circle. It's not as complicated as I thought. I don't have to spend my whole life chasing these little false rabbit trails and these mysteries and learn every little thing about the occult and every little thing that goes inside of that coffin and the secret society where the guys are kissing the goats and jerking each other off. The old men are jerking each other off in the coffins. I don't need to know all that stuff. It doesn't matter. It's frivolous. It's just a hook. It's like Scientology, where they tell you, oh, if you make it to the 30th level and you become like Tom Cruise, then you get to read from the book of life, and then you'll really know the secrets, but you're not there quite yet. They keep that carrot stick in front of you because they always want you chasing over this occult knowledge. I don't have to spend my whole life reading all these occult esoteric books. I mean, I'm just going to get old before I ever get to the end of most of them. They're so long. I don't need to do that. I can enjoy a football game. I can, it's just, some of these New Age beliefs, especially, there's so many weird little beliefs. Who knows if they're even true? Like reincarnation. Like reincarnation could be totally true. But do I really have anything to go on where I should accept reincarnation as fact? And people are going to get mad. Of course it's true. What's wrong with you? You're stupid. No, it's opinion. It's belief. You don't know that. You don't know if it's demons or AI or archons or goblins or banshees on their period. Right? Okay. So enough ranting about aliens. So sick of them. Freaking aliens coming all the way out here so they can stick something up the butt, do a butt experiment. Yeah, aliens really are concerned with your butt. Really. Your butt is the center of the universe, and it contains the secrets of the universe. I mean, inside of your butt is everything, right? It's the Holy Grail. It's the holiest of holies. You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous. These things these aliens are supposedly doing. Why? Oh, we gotta stick this device into Whitley Strieber's butt. Then our species will be saved. Okay, so whoa, shit! What's going on? let's answer that. Hello.
What's up, Daniel?
Oh, hey there, Al.
You don't believe in aliens anymore, huh?
Not in the sense that I used to. That's I don't want to say that I don't believe them at all because I don't know if that's really where I should go completely. I just don't believe in the sort of flesh and blood, nuts and bolts aliens. I believe they are entities.
Well, here's why we don't see them is because they created the human race and they don't want us to see them. They also created your astral meat set called the soul. Technically, we're all pure thought. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, sure, but again, it's just taking the gods of old and giving them a different label. I mean, you could say that it was Zeus that created us, and Zeus is out there, and he remains hidden because he doesn't want us to see him.
No, the gods of old are just aliens.
Well, maybe they were, but how could we really know that? I mean, we don't really have any good evidence that they were aliens. We could just say that they're aliens, but really what we're doing is we're taking the little green men and we're giving them all sorts of magical powers, and we're just making them the same as the gods of old, and we're using a different word for it.
Yeah, but if you think about it this way, let's say you got a time machine, you traveled back into, let's say, 10,000 years ago, and you were and you had a car, you took a car with you, loaded with a full tank of gas, and you started driving around, and you had your CD player, and you're all cranking up your tunes and shit like that, and they all think of you as a god now, wouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, you could say that was technology being used back then, but who's to say that the aliens wouldn't just say, hey, this is how this works, and we're from this place, and why don't you write it down in a book over here? And you don't really see that. They just say that they're gods. And I mean, why do I need to call them aliens? I would have to stretch and project things onto the situation to turn them into aliens. Why can't I just believe that they were gods?
Well, like I said, if you had a time machine, you traveled back into, let's say, 1,000 years ago, and you're driving around in your car and cranking up your stereo, blasting your music, they would think of you as a god, now wouldn't they? Or a demon, one or the other.
Yeah, but if I was a god, they would think I was a god too.
Yeah, but there is no God. God is everything. Like the dude said, everything you see is God.
Maybe there is gods and there aren't any aliens. Maybe it's just that we're creating these aliens from other planets to explain something. Maybe that's the projection. Maybe it's reverse.
Well, here's why they don't make contact with us. According to them, we're just a bunch of stupid monkeys on a jerkwater planet in the backwoods of the Milky Way galaxy.
But what are they? They're just a bunch of butt-obsessed little green men with big ugly eyes that try to molest us occasionally.
Well, you know why aliens do anal probes, don't you?
No.
Any self-respecting alien knows that's the quickest way to get to the human brain. Basically, humans are just walking around staring at their belly buttons.
Okay, that's another thing, Al. Okay, that begs another point. The aliens, the gods back then, why don't they resemble the reptilians or the gray aliens of today that people report from abductions? Why are they completely different?
Well, according to the Urantia book, the Earth is, because Earth got involved in the Lucifer Rebellion, you heard about that, right?
Yeah.
Right, the Earth got put under quarantine, and it's 500,000 years behind its scheduled progress. So they're just humans from other planets that are more advanced than us because they didn't engage in the rebellion with Lucifer and Satan. And they're like I said, we're 500,000 years behind our scheduled development because it's been under quarantine for that long, planet Earth. So we're just a bunch of, that's why they look like humans, unlike Egypt on the hieroglyphs and stuff.
But even in that sort of way of looking at the universe, you don't say like, oh, it's a flesh and blood, nuts and bolts alien from this and such part of the universe. It's always like, oh, the aliens on the planet died and they evolved into higher beings and now they're interdimensionals and now they're just beings of pure energy and thought. I mean, that's not really an alien at that point. That's an entity. So why not just believe in entities?
No, those are ascended beings. Like in the Urantia book, it explains that once you get to a certain state of development, psychologically and mentally, then you get live out your life as pure spirit, and you don't have to incarnate in the flesh and blood.
But isn't that just Christianity when you really think about it? It's just switching a few little things around.
No, I don't believe in Christianity. I think it's a crock of shit. I've studied it, and I found out, like I told you before, Jesus and frickin' Jehovah are just people that live on the earth, and they're up in an upper astral plane. Got a bunch of dumbasses fooled into thinking they're God and His Son.
But couldn't you say the same thing about the... Couldn't you say the same thing about...
What's that?
Go ahead.
No, you were breaking up. What did you say?
Oh, I was just going to say, couldn't you say the same thing about the Book of Urantia? I mean... it could be just written by some guy or written by some demon that somebody was channeling or something like that. I mean, why is it that these ancient sort of beliefs, there's no way they could be true, but this book that some guy wrote that some people think is real, how could that be more truthful than these ancient texts that have all these things in them that ring true spiritually?
Well, those ancient texts were designed for the times. Mankind's reached a spot where he's ready for, or he's reached a point psychologically and mentally where he can handle the truth.
But wouldn't you think that if there is this big conspiracy out there that it doesn't necessarily have to be that it all comes down to aliens? Maybe aliens are a part of that conspiracy as well. Maybe they're just another layer of that, and it's not the big bad aliens that are behind it all. It's really that these aliens are part of the hoax and the deception that's before our eyes.
Yeah, I used to work with a board game Christian. I asked him one time, what do you think of aliens? And he's all, oh, they're demons sent by the devil to trick us. I just had to laugh at that. All I know is that they keep themselves hidden because most people, they came in contact with an actual alien, they just breathe in fear. They're not psychologically able to deal with it. They've been programmed by the Judeo-Christian lie.
But why does it have to be that the Judaism, which goes back a very long ways, why does it have to be that those beliefs are the lie and this new alien religion is the truth? Because a lot of people believe in this. A person that believes in aliens or ancient aliens, they're not really a rarity anymore. It seems like most people actually are starting to believe this.
63% of the American public believes in aliens now.
Sounds an awful lot like a religion, doesn't it?
I don't know. You know what's the difference between a cult and a religion? How they treat you when you try to leave it.
And that's what you have with a lot of these alien cults. There's usually some leader that's channeling information and a bunch of little puppets that are being mind controlled. The alien and UFO cults are quite popular.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not supposed to join an organized religion. You're supposed to develop these beliefs on your own and worship by yourself, not in a group setting. Group settings are like religions are just comfort zones. That's all they are.
But isn't that what the Book of Urantia is, or any of these beliefs in aliens that you die and you get recycled? Isn't that just a modern day religion that some person put on the internet one day?
No, that's been a book that was written in 1934 and first published in 1952. And there's no religion based on it. There's no group of people. There's some groups that get together and study together, but there's no such thing as a religion of it.
But isn't it just another belief system that might be true, but we could just throw it in the bin with all the other ones, like Hinduism and Buddhism and what the Native Americans believed, a big coyote created everything? Isn't it just another one?
Actually, according to the Native Americans, the Earth is a big giant turtle, and we live on its back.
Now that is the truth.
You ever watch Futurama?
I love that show.
Remember the episode where Bender goes off flying out into space, and then all of a sudden a civilization develops on his body, and he's their god?
I haven't seen that one, but that sounds hilarious.
And on his belly, they're all like Amish people, and they're all like, he talks to them stuff like that, and then towards the end, they start talking about how they need to destroy their enemy, which the civilization lives on his back. All of a sudden, the people that live on his back that he never talks to develop nuclear bombs and shit like that and send them around Bender onto the front side and start bombing everybody. And they're all, why, God, why are you letting this happen? He's all, I'm aloof that way.
I love that.
Yeah, God like to do the same about the ant farm. It's just an ant farm to him.
Well, hey, Al, there's a new show. It's on Netflix. I believe it's called Disenchantment, and it's actually made by the people that did Futurama.
Is it a cartoon?
Yeah.
I don't have Netflix. I don't pay for TV.
Well, it's set in like a medieval sort of fantasy world, and the main character, who's a princess with awful buck teeth, she has a little companion that's a demon named Lucy, short for Lucifer.
Yeah, that sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, I knew that would get you. I knew that hook you in, Al.
What really pisses me off is fucking CBS puts Star Trek Discovery on one episode, and then fucking got to go to CBS All Access to watch it, and you got to pay $6 a month to fucking watch the new Star Trek.
Is it any good?
Oh no, I saw the first one, kind of disappointed it, but I wanted to, watch some other ones and let it progress, see how it goes. And then they put the first episode on air, and then the rest of them they're putting on their website.
Yeah, that's how they're getting everybody on that app, because they know there's a huge contingent of Star Trek fans out there, and by putting that on the app, everybody's going to download their app and get on that. Otherwise, no Star Trek for you.
Well, I've been on a lot of science fiction Facebook pages, and everybody's all pissed off about it. I ain't watching it because they charge you $6. If it was free, I might go there and watch it, but it's $6 a month to have access to it, which means you have to have a credit card, which I don't own. But there's another new Star Trek series coming out based on Picard.
Oh.
And then there's another one coming out. I guess there's a spin-off of this new Star Trek Discovery coming out soon, too. Like you said, they figure they can just rip off all the Trekkies by making them pay for watching it.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it's somewhat mediocre. I wasn't that impressed with the last couple of the Star Trek movies, and a lot of that stuff's really hit and miss. I mean, I can't say any of the shows were bad. Deep Space Nine had a huge following. I was a big fan of Voyager. Enterprise wasn't really the best show, but it still kind of had that contingent of fans there and some pretty classic sort of things that happened. The shows have never really failed. They've never really failed. The movies maybe, but the shows have always kind of been successes.
Well, when Enterprise first came out, I wasn't a big fan of Scott Bakula, so whatever. But they've been having it on H&I every night. We got the first Star Trek, and then Next Generation, then Deep Space Nine, then Voyager, and then Enterprise. And I started watching them, all the Enterprise, and I thought, hey, this is actually a pretty good show. I'm digging the concept here with the Xindi and all that.
Well, I really like the Borg thing because that's transhumanism, and that's what's going on right now. There is a force, and you could call them aliens or entities. I prefer entities, but They are trying to do just that to us. They're trying to turn us into machines, and they're trying to turn us into a collective mind, and they're trying to make us slaves to this machine network.
That's kind of funny you mentioned that, because when this weird shit started with me, I kept saying, "We are a Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile."
It is. It is. That's exactly what's going on. The Borg are here. They're trying to simulate us, and people are accepting it. They're taking the mark. They're accepting the chip.
That's going way beyond that. I was offered an android body to place my consciousness into it, so I could live for 10,000 years.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
I turned them down. I wasn't interested in being one of their puppets.
How do you know that you didn't actually take the deal and they erased that part of your memory? And if you were to take a knife and cut into your arm, you might see some cybernetic parts.
I actually did have fake skin for a while. I actually was in that for a bit, but they let me go. My skin was made out of fiberglass.
Who let you go?
They did. You've heard of the Mandela effect, right?
Yes.
At the timeline is constantly changing. The Matrix is all fucked up right now because of all their time travel. It's full of potholes and it's falling apart. Because they keep going, people that are in control keep going back and trying to maintain their power structure by changing things that would have, what's a good example? Like a lot of these cop shootings, they were getting rid of people that in the future are going to be rebel rousers against the system.
Now that I definitely believe. In fact, I believe that something like that may have even happened to myself.
And well, the problem with that is that's fucking up the Matrix. You can't, it's got a certain script that it follows, and if you go around changing the script, and that starts creating potholes. And so the Matrix is kind of falling apart. I've been seeing all kinds of glitches in the Matrix myself. Like when I look up at the moon and I see where the sun should be, and based on the sun on the moon, and that's where it's pointing, the sun should still be in the sky after it's already set.
I've noticed a few little things like that as well. Some things that seem to be inconsistent in regards to what I remember how it being.
Oh, here's a good one for you. There's a big old pile of dirt over here in west side of this valley where the copper mine's at. The overburden, they just piled it up into a big wall about a mile high, maybe 2 miles wide at the base and 5 miles long, maybe a little longer.
Uh-huh.
Last week I was looking over there and I was all, wow, where'd that big old wall of dirt go? It's not there anymore. I would have noticed something like that as it slowly went down, as they were moving it out. It was just all of a sudden one day, I looked over and I go, hey, where'd that big wall of dirt go? Now I can see inside the copper mine. That's weird. Or like I was telling Todd earlier, this morning I woke up and my Google Chrome and my internet, or my Windows media player icons on my computer were switched. Like they say, I keep them in the same place. And I'll wake up and turn my computer on and some of my icons are moved.
Well, they actually have magic books that will teach you how to shift yourself into a different reality where just one thing or many things might be different.
Well, I've been experiencing that most of my adult life. That TV show Sliders, where they go into a different Earth and things are different. On the TV show, they go to a different Earth and everything's different. Major differences. But I go to different Earths where the differences are just slight, mostly unnoticeable by most people.
You're supposed to take a candle and stick it in front of your face, and you and the candle sit in front of a mirror, and you concentrate on the candle, and then at some point you're going to switch places with the you in the mirror. You're going to feel it shift, and then inside of that mirror universe, you're going to notice different things around you that are different from the old universe.
And why is my computer for that? Like one time I was watching my computer, I was doing something and they told me not to do it, and I did it anyways, and all of a sudden all these new martial law videos start popping up on my screen. People videotaping police rounding people up and shit like that. And I go, okay, I don't want to go to that Earth, that's for damn sure. And I've seen Earths where I'm a homosexual and shit like that through my computer.
Oh, damn.
I go, well, make sure I stay away from that one, because that ain't me.
Yeah, did you save those videos?
I don't know how to save videos off of Facebook.
Well, hey, Al, have you heard of these binary kids? Well, now the whole thing is like, instead of being transgendered, I guess that's kind of passé at this point. The whole thing now is being non-binary. So you grow up with no sexual orientation or no sex. You're just kind of an it, and you don't have. Nobody can call you a girl. No one can call you a boy, regardless if you were born with a penis or a vagina. They just have to call you a non-binary.
That just sounds like mental programming to me.
Yeah, isn't it weird?
What the New World Order is going for. They're trying to bring the population down. They can't just go out and murder frickin' billions of people all at once, right?
Yeah.
Well, the best way to do it is just, I guess, so people stop breeding.
Yeah, I think that there's something there. And abortion, too. I'm pretty sure they use abortion to get rid of minorities.
That's a good possibility.
If you look at the statistics, the women getting abortions are usually, 3 times as many black or Hispanic.
Well, that's what Planned Parenthood was engineered for in the first place.
Yeah,
they tend to overbreed, though. Most white people I know got 1 or 2, 3 kids. Most black people I know got fucking 5 to 10 kids. Same with Hispanics.
Yeah, and the white old men that are eugenicists, they come up with these little schemes to get rid of them.
Well, they are overbreeding. There's no excuse in today's modern world to have that many kids. You only need 2 or 3. You don't need fucking 5 or 10, you know?
Yeah, sure, I agree, but I don't think anybody has a right to play God.
They're not playing God. They're just trying to manage the earth.
Yeah, but
they're
using deception.
Permanent sustainability on the earth is 1 billion people. You can have you maintain a population of 1 billion people, the earth could sustain itself for fucking indefinitely. But when you start getting too many people, like there's 7.5 billion, almost 8 billion people on the planet, it's getting unmanageable. Somebody got to do something, right?
Well, yes and no. I mean, there has to be a way to do it without turning it into a situation where these deceptions need to happen. There's got to be a right way to do it. I can't accept that we have to lie and deceive and murder in order to make things good, because we're giving up ourselves to do that. So there's no point in doing it, because if we're going to give up our humanity so that we can continue humanity, there's no point to continue humanity. The best thing to do would just actually be to kill everybody.
Have you ever seen the movie The Happening?
Oh, the movie where nothing happened?
No, everybody just starts killing themselves.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious.
People jumping off buildings, people jumping in front of cars, people just doing whatever, somebody commit suicide, and kind of like nature just weeding out the herd. Or nature thinning the herd out.
Yeah.
That's another thing that could happen.
Yeah, I think that there probably is some natural way that can happen, but part of it is man's greed, because we were able to industrialize everything. That's the reason why the populations exploded and people live so long. It's because of the Industrial Revolution and the greed. Maybe if we got rid of the greed and got rid of some of these polluting technologies, maybe the population would kind of shrink naturally.
Well, that's what we're doing. Germany's getting rid of all the nuclear power plants and going all renewable energy. I think by 2020, Germany's supposed to be energy neutral. All renewable energy, no more nuclear power plants, no coal-fired power plants at all. France is heading that direction. A lot of Scandinavian countries are doing that. We need to do that too.
Yeah,
we're heading that direction.
That'd be great, but the thing is that we've already done so much damage. Like our oceans have been overfished and they're empty. I wonder if it's possible to even fix things.
I'm more worried about Fukushima than that. Fukushima's irradiated the entire Pacific Ocean. I've seen stories of sailors go across the Pacific Ocean all the time. They say it's completely dead now.
Yeah, you can't do
See
that
all
shit
kinds
to
of
the
whales
planet.
and dolphins sitting down. They see nothing out there.
See, these Illuminati eugenicist people, they want to kill us, but at the same time, with the corporations they own, they are killing the Earth itself.
All right, but Fukushima's the fly in the ointment. The monkey wrench in the gears, as it were. They didn't expect that. I'm seeing an extinction event before I'm dead. All this rain that's been falling down on me, it's all radioactive. All the Pacific Ocean water is radioactive. All the snow that's been falling over the western United States is all radioactive. It's not enough to actually kill us and make us start bleeding and shit like a nuclear bomb would, but yeah, we're all slowly getting killed off by radiation right now. That's why the Japanese or the Chinese never attacked us. We were supposed to have a nuclear war with China in 2015. After Fukushima happened, we don't want it now. You can keep it. It's going to kill you off anyways. It's like it's going to kill him off eventually too.
Well, interesting stuff, Al. Unfortunately, I do have to...
The radiation's made its way into the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean now too.
Very true. Unfortunately, Al, I do have to get off this call, but I will talk to you more about Fukushima and the environment another time.
All right, yeah, I'd play my guitar for you, but everybody's asleep here, and I'd get in trouble.
Well, we'll save that for next time as well. I'll talk to you later, Al. You have a good night, my friend.
All right, peace out, bro.
And that was Al. You can just go on and on with him. I have to kind of hit the brakes with him sometimes because if I don't, we're just gonna, 2 hours will pass. And what happened? Oh, I was talking to Al. Started asking him questions. It got weird, and I wanted to keep him on the line. Can't always do that over and over. Although Al does have his fan base out there. I get feedback all the time telling me that they want to hear more of Al. They want me to interview Al. They want to know more about him. He's so interesting. But we do have a few other things we've got to touch on in the news. Something very relevant, important that has happened. Apparently, China has landed a rover on the dark side of the moon. A lot of people are calling it fake. They're pointing out the fact that there's a stage prop line in a photo of I guess it's called the Jade Rabbit rover. There's an actual line of chalk drawn there. I've seen all the China space videos, and I have to say, they kind of look like what you would expect from a Chinese Saturday morning kids show. That's how the special effects look. Like they showed the moon one time, and it seriously looked like the fake moon made out of cheese that you would see on a kids show, or that you would see some kid making in his basement out of clay, or it did not look like the same moon that I see when I look up at the moon. But you have to figure, since Chinese movies, the special effects typically aren't as good, their space program would have equally bad special effects. And I know Japan has actually sent a probe to the moon as well that took pictures, and I at first I was like, oh, well, that proves it, right? That proves space is real. If Japan went there, there you go. There's the smoking gun. I guess I was wrong. And then I went on to YouTube to watch the actual videos that they took to confirm it and to check it out because it sounded interesting. Fake. Looked totally fake. Looked like CGI. Just bright colored, cartoonish. Did not look even halfway real. Just looked totally fake. I don't know how they're getting all these different governments and countries to go in on the lie. But I suppose if there really is this octopus Illuminati network, that would be very easy to do. They would just have to compartmentalize everything and keep everything secret. Interesting thing about the satellites, because the launch of these satellites, it always seems to be kind of concealed in a lot of secrecy. And you could look at something like Sirius satellite radio, you know, Howard Stern, Sirius, and say, oh, that's evidence that the Earth is indeed round, space is real. But then you read about it and you find out that the Sirius satellite signal is actually boosted by land antennas and transponders. But you're paying for satellites and you're basically getting the same thing as terrestrial radio, right? So why are you paying 15, 17 bucks a month to listen to Sirius? I guess if you're really a big Howard Stern fan, you're going to do that. I used to listen to Howard Stern every day. Like, the Howard Stern show was the focal point of my life at some point. You know, huge inspiration on me personally. But I just have not listened lately at all. I just haven't got into it. I don't have Sirius, so I don't really have a way to listen. It's kind of sad because I wonder what's going on that show and how things have changed. But my time is so limited. I have to do my own show, and I have to work full time. What little time I have, I like to devote to my music because it's very sustaining in life. And there's so many things I want to do. I want to get back in the gym, you know, take some MMA classes and stuff like that. But it's like the time, it's just, oh, if only I was 10 years younger forever and I had a clone that could do stuff while I'm working. That'd be the best life right there. Just give me an infinity to do all the different things I want. Like, I'll spend 100 years learning some jiu-jitsu and learning every single little thing about it, and then I'll spend the next 100 years learning the violin, right? Wasn't there a book like that? Like, you'd go to Shambhala and you would spend all this time learning how to play the violin. Whatever. Okay, anyways. So, China fails again at getting to the moon. Big fail by China. They tend to fail a lot over there. I know like a third of the country still doesn't even have electricity. They are socialist communist. Just a lot of negative things going on in China. But then again, maybe it looks completely opposite if you're actually a Chinese person living there. Maybe all the messed up crap is happening over here. That really evens it out, doesn't it? Ha! Oh, who's this? Who's this? Hello?
Hello.
Hey there, buddy.
Hey, Daniel.
How are you doing?
I am so good. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. You were just going on about China.
Yes.
Trump's talked about China a lot. China.
Yes, he has.
One of my most favorite Trump quotes is where he's like, "Ping pong, ching chong chang, chong ching China, hey."
What? He said that? What?
Oh yeah, he has a classic one. Look it up on YouTube where he goes, "Ping pong, ching chong, China."
That sounds a little borderline racial.
It sounds a little borderline racial. It's more like calling it for what it is.
It's a ching chong ping pong?
China's communist.
Very much so.
Through and through. And they are antagonistically against us.
Yes.
From the beginning. I mean, that's their policy. United States bad, but we love them, or we work with them.
Ding, 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 ding,
a lot
ding,
of
ding, ding, ding. United States bad.
You need to look that up on YouTube where Trump goes, ping pong, ching chong. I love that.
Oh my God.
Used it in my ringtone. It's so good. It's kind of brought up China. Somewhere China got up on your last guest, got brought up.
Yeah.
Fantastic show. I didn't want to call in because he was so fascinating.
Well, back on the China thing, one famous Chinese person was Bruce Lee.
Bruce Lee's Chinese?
He was half Chinese.
Yeah, yeah. And he did that movie, Enter the Dragon.
But Bruce Lee, he actually came up with the idea for that show Kung Fu. They didn't want him to be in the show because they said he looked too Chinese.
That sounds about right. 1970s, America. Sounds about. Well, he was the lead star, like the lead foreign star in 1970 or 72. Enter the Dragon was the #1 movie of the year, dude.
Yeah, that was a fantastic movie. It's still like the best of all time.
Fantastic movie. Oh my God.
But
so incredible.
But you know what's funny is you don't really see any Asian people in our movies or on our TV shows or anything like that.
Do you see any Asians on our TVs?
No.
Today?
No.
No, you don't really, do you?
No, what's up with that?
Out of one.
It's because
Yep,
Hollywood,
correct,
Todd, it's because Hollywood is the Illuminati, and the Illuminati are racist.
Well, I wouldn't argue against that.
I'm
And
sorry, Todd.
I
Go
don't
ahead.
think
What were you going to say about the guest earlier? I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh no, your guest is so wow, made so many incredible points and stuff. I really like his perspective. North Carolina. North Carolina. That's an interesting place to live.
It is, isn't it?
Where a lot of places, North Carolina has a lot of military bases. They're on the coastline of the East Coast, Daniel.
Yeah, anywhere where you're connected to water, you're definitely going to at least have the Navy there.
Oh, yeah. Long history. Very incredible history, North Carolina. Wow, his ideas, I'm like, pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah,
the space
different
stuff. The space stuff I love the best. I mean, let's get on to it. We're told space is just a vacuum that's going to crunch you. Pressure. Like you go underwater, it's going to crunch you. And they're going to send this tin can up to the moon.
Under pressure. Go ahead, Todd.
Coming down on me.
Under pressure.
Washing over me. The reason that song was good because David Bowie was in it.
Yeah.
Not that Queen was involved, but David Bowie was lending his old voice to the new Queen before it died.
Hey, check this out,
Todd.
Check this out. That jogs my memory. There was an album, a record, right? You were big into records back in the day, right?
Yeah, all day.
Well, Alice Cooper, he released a record, and the record was encased in a pair of women's underwear.
I think I remember that. Which album was it?
I don't know. I guess I'd have to Google that. Let's see.
I gotta look at that fucker. So it's got a women's underwear inside the case because you can't put it on the outside. You have to put it on the inside.
The actual record was wrapped up in it. School Out LP.
You slide the record out and there's a pair of women's panties.
Yeah.
I'm sure no women wore them. That sounds like a pretty good promotional gimmick.
Yeah, I just can't believe anything like that was going on. I mean, I never knew about that.
Well, the 70s was kind of like, how do you reach people from nowhere? Any gimmicks, a gimmick because there wasn't the computer. Now you can just reach into people's minds and there's your new gimmick.
Do you think if a gal
Back in the day, they had to send poundies. You might have to send poundies in an album cover.
Yeah, do you
there
think
was
if
stupid, ridiculous shit like that going on?
Yeah, do you
No
think
doubt
if
we had the pet rock where you could buy a rock in a box for $10.
Yeah, do you
People
think
went in for it.
Do you think if a gal was a little bit more on the poor side and she was a fan of Alice Cooper, she might just start wearing those panties that come with the record?
I don't think the record industry would pay to get panties from all these skanky girls listening to Alice Cooper. No, that doesn't sound like it really that part happened.
No,
I can see him wrapping panties around a record, but not getting women to wear the panties for you. This 1978 wasn't Japan 2018 yet.
No, I meant like if she didn't have money for underwear, she might actually just wear them.
Who?
Never mind, Todd.
Exactly.
Exactly. You've been drinking, haven't you?
I had a couple beers when I heard your show's going on, that I am like, I better get a couple beers. I'm drinking a really good one tonight, Daniel. Lagunitas.
Ooh.
Have you ever heard of that brand?
I've heard of it. The name, I know I've heard, but I have not had that particular brew.
Oh, God, they do, like 6 different brews, but the best one's brown sugar, because it's a beer that's 10%. One 12-ounce bottle of beer, 10%.
That's high, isn't it?
According to Utah, where we have 3.2 beer, that's extremely high.
Yeah, that's one of those beers that you drink a couple of them and you get smashed like you just drank 6 beers.
Yeah, so you're not slamming those ones.
I used to drink that ice
ones.
beer when I was younger, and I was drinking every day after work. I'd do a construction.
Canadian stuff, yeah.
I do construction all day, and I'd be so burnt out and tired, I'd pound a couple of Mickeys.
Mickeys are like about 6 or 7s, and you drink a few of those, then you got enough. Utah has a cheap beer where if you go to the grocery gas station, they won't sell it at the stores here. You can get the cheap beer that's 3.2. So $10 you could buy enough to get you buzzed.
Well, hey Todd. Todd, since I got you here on the line, do you want to cover this next topic I want to talk about? You want to kind of help me out with this?
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw anything. I just thought, wow, what a great show. What a great show.
Well, no, I'm glad I have you here because I wanted to bring this up. I actually sent you some information about this. I think it was a couple days ago, but
John Wayne.
Yeah, I found out about this guy, John Wayne Todd. Same last name as your first name.
Yeah, you would bring up my first name. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, exactly. And this guy, he was out there talking about Illuminati and Satanists and 1968. He was born in 1949. He died in 2007, but he was very active in the Illuminati conspiracy type of stuff long before many others were even doing anything like that.
Have you ever heard of dispensationalism?
No.
That's a belief that Christians have held since they come up with the idea that the world's going to end, which was a long time ago, back in the it could go back to, I'll go back all the way to 500 AD. Because the Jews suffered the destruction of their religion.
The Jews!
They believed in the apocalypse.
The Jews!
Dispensationalism is the idea that the fucking world's going to come apart. It's going to end. And I'm not arguing against that it's going to end, Daniel. I wouldn't do that. I know you people can't wait for it to end.
I'm not can't wait. I've got my alarm clock set.
I've read Revelation so many times because that's the best part of the Bible, almost.
That is the best part. I love Revelations.
Where it's like, it's horrible, and then it's good. At the end, it all ends good. Yay!
Yeah, exactly. All this trippy shit happens. There's a dragon and
Once
a beast.
The world ends, it's awesome.
Fake alien saviors, the Antichrist.
Jesus comes down, sucks you out.
Jesus comes down,
Jesus.
whoops some
No,
Lucifer,
no,
a.k.a. the
you
devil
can't.
ass.
Listen, there were
When
groups
Jesus
that were
returns, he's
teaching
going to
this.
return and he's going to fight.
I know, that's what they say.
Yeah, he's going
He's
to...
going to come out with a sword out of his mouth.
Yeah, he's going to...
You go through Revelations. At the end, he comes in like a lamb, and then he goes out like a lion with a sword coming out of his mouth, cutting down all the...
Yes, you know your Bible, Todd. You know your Bible.
Jesus, in the end, comes out with a sword out of his mouth. What does that mean? He's cutting you down. He's like, phew, 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 phew. What else could that mean, a sword out of his mouth?
It means his words are going to be so powerful that they just tear down the entire matrix.
People fall. The whole thing just...
Exactly.
That's what they say. That's what they say. But they say before that happens, the world has to end where 2/3 of it has to burn. The Antichrist has to come back. Everybody has to get on their knees. Millions of people are going to be guillotined with a giant structure that's going to be sitting over them. And
it's going to be like decorated in all this heavy metal shit.
And then heavy bands are going to be playing the odds. You're coming to the guillotine. Come on, man.
Megadeth will be played.
Come on.
And Gwar.
Can't we have Gore? Gore's up there going, come to me, my children.
Now that is the end of days. I love it.
That is the end of days. And can't we have a world more like when the 1950s science fiction writers wrote where we're going to leave the planet, we're going to find other planets, we're going to colonize out there. The world isn't going to burn into 2/3 because one religion says that it's going to happen any minute. So we got to give a bunch of money to make sure it doesn't happen.
Well, no,
I'm not buying a word of it, dude.
Not just one religion. I would say just about every religion has some sort of end of days or some sort of great climatic period, or there's always something there. Something's going to happen.
Well, I'd rather follow Gore than what the Bible's telling you is going to happen, because Gore's here and they're taking over the world with music. It's just a metaphor. Go ahead and live your life from a book that was written 2,000 years ago. And some people that are trying to manipulate your mind are going to twist old text to tell you the world's going to end, and you got to believe them. Follow them down the path. When it ends, Jesus will be here, and you'll all be fantastic. Come on, that sounds like Charlie Manson.
Yeah, that's true, Todd. But the truth is,
can't we live on?
Wait.
Can't we live on, Daniel? Can't we travel to another planet?
See, that's the problem,
technology?
Todd. That's
Can we
the
not
problem.
blow the planet up and have 2/3 of burn?
That's the problem, because we can't do that. We cannot just leave. There's nowhere to go. We are fucked. Jesus is all we have. It's like there's no hope unless somebody comes and saves our asses. It's true. We can't turn this shit around. We can't bring the orcas back and train them to swim. It's not going to work that way. We can't bring the orcas back, Todd.
Jesus?
How are we going to bring the orcas back? How are we going to bring the orcas back?
You know who Jesus is? He was a revolutionary that was fighting against Rome.
Exactly. He wasn't about control. He was a rebel. It's not control. Jesus is the ultimate rebel.
They put him in that position. They're like, dude, you got to get up there. You got to fight these guys. They're bigger than he is. And he's like, I don't want it. Kind of snuck him out the back door. Probably let somebody else hang on the cross.
No, Todd, it's not about Jesus. Jesus was just a name that literally means Zeus. His name wasn't even Jesus. It was Yeshua, and it's not about Jesus. It's about Messiah. It's about somebody coming along that's going to change the game and actually give us a chance of getting out of this mess.
No, there's no somebody at the end of long ago at some point of time that's going to give you a way out. No. There's only life and people. and historical figures that they've twisted to try to wrap you around in his, buy what you want, but they're using this all as a psyop to guide us into the end of the world.
Todd,
you're just closer.
Todd, you're just saying that because you hate Jews.
No, I love. I wouldn't say I love Jews, but I know
you don't love them, do you?
I know some Jewish people that I love.
But don't you know that the main part of Judaism and Jewish people and their beliefs is the Messiah, who they do not believe has come yet. But people that are Jewish, that are really true Jews and true Hebrews, they are all about Messiah, and they are all about the kingdom of heaven that is coming.
The Jewish people that I know aren't all wrapped up in that bull crap. I won't say shit. Ideology that was developed 2,000 years ago. They're just people that follow Judaism, and they're honorable, great people. They're not all involved in that. That's all a psyop, Daniel.
Well,
anybody that's telling you this
you would have to agree
against that group.
Then you would have to agree that I am a more devout Jew than they are.
Are you like a full Jew person? Are you a Jew?
Yeah, I'm a
Japanese
Jew. I'm
Jew?
a Christian Jew. I'm a Christian Jew.
You're a Christian Jew.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you claim your lineage?
I am somebody that converted to both Christianity and Judaism at once.
And Judaism. So you love the Old Testament, New Testament. You're a full believer in which Bible?
In all of them.
All the Bibles.
Including the Lost
Book
Books
Bible
of Eden.
Daniel, it says there's aliens.
Including the Lost Book of Eden, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Giants, the Lost Gospel of Thomas.
Exactly.
And the Satanic Bible. Just kidding.
So you believe in God, and you can't wait for the end of days, because that's the name of your show.
The end
Man, you
of
couldn't
days.
have picked a better name of your show. You are prophetic. And your name's Daniel. That's what pissed me off. He's like, his name's Daniel. The first fucker, I don't even mean to say fucker, in the Bible, was Daniel that mentioned the end of days.
Because I'm reading prophet. The writing on the wall, Todd. I am reading the writing on the wall.
That doesn't mean you're the reincarnation of the ancient Daniel that mentioned end of days, but it's pretty weird.
Maybe it does mean that. Maybe I am that person. How do you know?
Well, I'm not saying you're not, because you got Michael over on the other show, and you got Daniel on this show, and your show's the best show in the world.
Well, this is something, though, because Daniel from the book of Daniel... And
you always keep referencing the archangels.
He said...
And like Al said, the angels and the demons are the same thing.
Well,
so go on.
Daniel is supposed to come back in the time of Revelations. He's supposed to reincarnate or come down from the sky in a beam of light or something, but he's supposed to be here. And maybe I'm him.
My wife said you should stop yelling.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was.
Yell if I am. Am I yelling? No, I'm not. My point is, Daniel, I don't believe in dispensationalism. And I don't want the world to end in a fiery fireball, according to the people that believe it's going to end that way in Revelations. Read Revelations.
Well,
read Nostradamus.
Do you know what God said, Todd?
Oh, what did God say?
He said, I am that I am.
He did say that. And then, you know what Popeye said? I am what I am.
But wait, hold on. What were you saying?
And I'm only a man because I'm Popeye, this sailor man.
You were about to say something interesting, and I can't remember what it was.
Of course, you threw me with your... I was trying to go a little deeper. I apologize. Your guest got me off on some sidetracks. Because he started with the goddamn moon being fake, the Chinese thing. And I wanted to talk about how... Notice how the Chinese send the satellite up there, and then somebody got that line on YouTube where the thing's supposed to start moving. You know, the line in the sand, the chalk line, like you do on a movie set.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at all the pictures of the moon that China's sending back. It looks dirt colored. How come everything that we got from the United States was white, gray, like it's so special? They call it regolith. It's white moon gray dust. But on the back side of the moon, it looks like your average Chinese fucking blown up dirt dump. Is it just me, or you know,
your
like
average Chinese dirt dump?
I'm just saying, they give you 4 pictures. They can't give you no good pictures. Here's this thing, it's taken off. We're all supposed to believe it. Daniel, what am I to do with this? The pressures of space. Your guest brought up the thing where take a rubber glove, put it on your hand like one of those ones you could buy from the store. Fill a bucket of water, put your hand down in the bucket of water. The rubber glove, you know, it pressures to your hand. The space suits look like you're wearing a fucking puffy space suit while on the moon. It doesn't make no sense there. You know what I'm saying? Pressure.
What it is, Todd?
They're telling us it's so intense.
This is all going to come full circle. It's all going to come full circle. What you're seeing is the Prince of Lies, the Prince of the Air, the God of Manipulation, Lucifer, Morningstar, the Lightbringer. He is creating this illusion for all of us, and he's manipulating our minds and deceiving us into believing in this space and these aliens and this and that. It's all bullshit. It's all just this demonic, archonic alien bullshit.
Well, see how you end with demonic, archaic bullshit.
Archonic.
You know, go back, or archonic. Go back to where you start there. It's all bullshit. Stop before you go. Demonic, archaic.
Demonic, archonic.
Yes, stop before that. It's all bullshit. Stop before you label it demonic and archaic. I got to bring this up. Remember how he was talking about the Masons?
Go ahead.
The Masons and the moon? Long time ago, we talked about how the Masons and the moon, they put a lodge on the moon, Daniel, the first Masonic lodge on the moon. Remember Mad Martian was telling us about they did the Masonic lodge on the moon?
Yeah.
You can go on YouTube and look it up, how they set up the first Masonic lodge. I'm going to bring it back to Mad Martian.
Masons.
Mad Martian.
The Masons,
Mad Martian.
The Masons are Luciferians at the highest levels. They're Luciferians.
Go back. Mad Martian was hounding Hoagland. Remember how Mad Martian's like, Richard Hoagland, I'm going to get you. Why are you telling me this?
I'm going to chop you up and kill you.
I'm going to fuck you up. Why'd you tell me this?
I'm going to tie you down and rape you and kill you.
I'm going to get you. He's like a wrestler. It's like, oh my God, poor Richard Hoagland.
Yeah.
Poor Richard Hoagland's running from
Call
Mad
the police.
But Mad Martian a long time ago said they made Faces in Mars, the video, in Salt Lake City at the Masonic Lodge. Do you remember Mad Martian saying that?
Yeah, of course. He wouldn't shut up about
it. And then I said, fuck, I'm going to go down to the Masonic Lodge in Salt Lake and see if this is really going on, because I live in Salt Lake. And yep, there's that big giant Masonic Lodge there, damn it. Very impressive. Lions sit at the front of the giant steps as you come up. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know they're there.
Well, see, Mad Martian, he was onto something, like all that stuff about NASA and the Masons and the mental manipulation.
Saying, why are you making
all that
the
was
movie?
True.
You made the movie. Do you remember, Daniel? He said, you made the movie in Salt Lake in that Masonic Lodge, The Faces on Mars.
Yeah, that's true.
You remember him saying that?
Yeah, that stuff's all true and everything. But the thing is, where it stops is that the whole thing is fake. The going to the moon or taking the pictures of Mars and the face and all that, that's all fake too.
Yeah, why are you pushing the face? Why are you pushing the aliens? Why are you pushing the giant structures? Why do you keep pushing this for 30 years and nothing ever comes out, no images?
Fake,
even Bill
fake
Cooper
ancient
just showed
aliens.
you images.
Yeah, Bill Cooper, and that it was fake.
Either they're
disinformation.
faking it, either they're faking it for a reason, or they're real. Which one is it?
They're faking it for a reason. All those pictures of Mars are all fake. And Bill Cooper, you said this yourself. Later in his life, he admitted that they were manipulating him with all this alien bullshit, and they were getting him to go spread it around.
He said, I don't know whether they're putting me out here with all this information or if it's real. That's what he said. Can you grasp that?
Yeah, that's the exact truth. He saw what was going on, and he saw other people be manipulated. He put two and two together, and he said, hey, they were giving me this stuff to put out there. It's all part of the plan.
I'd be out here on the lecture circuit. I'm out here telling you everything they're telling me. Let me tell you what just happened last week, Daniel. They just put out a movie on Bob Lazar. Remember Bob Lazar?
Yeah.
Big person that said the very first person. I worked at Area 51 in 1989. I saw craft hovering. They wanted us to reverse engineer it. There's a movie out now. Go see it. Is that real or is that a psyop, Daniel?
Oh, Bob Lazar.
Now it comes back again.
He's definitely one of those disinfo people, of course. He's well known for being a disinfo guy.
Bill Cooper was calling him out saying, is this real or is this fake? Because he's telling you real places and spaces, and he has the credentials. He's seeing the UFOs. He's taking people to Area 51. No one even knew it existed. Is that real or not? Bill Cooper was calling him out way back when. Now there's a movie out this week, Daniel, exposing Bob Lazar, the real guy that told you aliens. And he doesn't say aliens are real, but he puts out the evidence that he was reverse engineering spacecraft. The whole Art Bell, the whole UFO thing. Is it real or is it a fiction?
Fiction. It's all disinformation.
Is it a psyop?
I'll explain it all. It's all disinformation because they're setting up the fake alien invasion. It's all disinformation. It's all part of the alien grand deception. That's why they're pushing the civilization that supposedly existed on Mars. Gary the Mad Martian, he's pushing disinformation, just doesn't realize it. They're giving him little trails to follow, little clues, and he's just getting pulled into their matrix of lies and manipulation. I even experienced it myself. I was pulled into all this alien crap I was reading on the internet. It was all fake the whole time. It was all put out there by them on purpose.
You mentioned that you were going to have the Wolfman on again.
Oh, yeah, that's still going to happen.
That's still going to happen.
I got like 50 people trying to come on the show right now. It's just getting crazy.
Oh, I should let you go?
No. I have a different guest trying to come on. Everybody's trying to come on the show.
I got to say this. The Wolfman said, what did they just say?
I don't know. Flat Earth heads.
Something about...
You know that they lied to us. They lied to us, flat Earth heads.
I love flat Earth heads. You
know that they lied to us.
My favorite song of all time. I listen to that all day long for the next 3 years. Number one song in the world.
We all sing it together.
I love the Wolfman. Flat Earth heads. Everybody lies to you. I love that song. Man, that's better than Queen. Fuck Queen. But that's not the point. I was just making a really good point. And if I keep it too long, Dan will cut me off. But I was making a really good point there for a minute ago, about how The flat Earth, the hiding of the thing. The thing. What are they hiding? We don't know what we don't know. Dawn, the last new caller on your last show, said, we don't know what we don't know. It sounds like Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah. It's so true.
Like,
it's so true.
We don't know, so if it's flat or it's round.
But hey, Todd, I am starting to get a little tired, buddy, so I better let you go so I can wrap things up.
Man.
All right, thanks for the call.
I should let you go.
Right on.
But before I let you go, I better leave you something powerful.
Go ahead.
Future's not set in stone, and I'm seeing it change before my eyes. It is going positive because the world doesn't want to die. Whatever corrupt little infestations infecting our planet, it's not winning because the collective consciousness of mankind is overpowering it. This is my predictions for the future. It doesn't mean we're all going to wake up tomorrow and go, yay! But it does mean that the people that are destroying this place are not going to win. And that's because they're greedy. So they're the stupidest people on the planet. I love what you're putting on. I love this show tonight. You got Al on there. And thanks, Daniel, for putting out such an incredible, weird broadcast. You're really holding up. You're really holding up the end of days as the world starts to collapse. I love it.
Well, thank you very much, Todd. And I will talk to you later, my friend. Good night.
Peace, my man.
And that was Todd the Bod. Would have kept him on longer, but as I said, I do feel my consciousness starting to fade. It's we're going on our 4th hour, so before we get to that point, before we cross that line into the 4-hour territory, I believe I better do our mind-blowing moment of the day. So let me grab an instrument. Oh boy, today I have a translucent blue recorder. I believe I got this from the Goodwill. Don't worry, I cleaned it. I cleaned all the bacteria and semen out of it and the poop. So, it's time. It's time. For that mind-blowing. Ooh, you're blowing my mind, man. That mind-blowing. You're blowing my goddamn mind, man. It's that mind-blowing moment of the day. And today's mind-blowing moment of the day, I'm going to say it was when our guest James True, he was talking about people getting programmed in ancient times using this sigil magic and it reverberating throughout the ages and these demonic beings being like programs. It's just so deep. It's fucking crazy. It's mind-blowing. I love that shit. It was like the missing piece of the puzzle for this entire thing. And that's what this is all about. It's about filling in those blanks and figuring it all out, making our model ever more true. So thank you to James True. Oh my. And remember, all of you out there, to visit endofdaysradio.com. Go there and get our schedule. Listen to the entire library of End of Days Radio, all the archive shows going back years and years, all those great classic interviews starring me, Daniel, from the book of Daniel, here reincarnated in the flesh to spread the truth and prepare the way for the Messiah. The Messiah. You guys know Jesus was black, don't you? Yes, it's true. He was a black man. And the Jews, the original Jews, were also black as well. I'm sure they were mixed black and Arab. If you look at where they're from, on the globe. Whoops, did I say globe? If you look at where they're from on the map, you will see where they lived, and you will see what ethnicity and race those people are. So put two and two together. It's the truth. It's true. Truth. 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 True. It's true. We're spreading the truth. That's what it's about. Sorry if that was incredibly annoying. Go to endofdaysradio.com. Pick us up on all the different, search EODR on the TuneIn Radio app. Pick us up on iTunes. Pick us up on Google Play. Check us out on YouTube. Go to the End of Days Radio channel on YouTube. So many different ways to get End of Days Radio. We're on everything. Be there or be square. Listen to the show. Increase your knowledge base. And I also wanted to just do a little shout out. There's somebody very important, somebody very special that might be angry at me at the moment. And if that person happens to be listening, I just want to say I am extremely sorry about what happened. And I would, of course, never talk about something like this publicly, but I just want to say I am extremely sorry and hope to hear from you again. And with that said, I thank you all for joining me on End of Days Radio. We will be back next week. It will be Wednesday, January 23rd at 8 p.m. We'll be talking to Alberto Daniel Hill. He's going to talk about media manipulation. He had all of his computers and everything seized by the government of his country. We will be talking to him. Something a little different. Going to go back into the world of computers and technology. Once again, we will continue to spread more and more truth. We will find our way through all these lies. We will find that little thread of truth. We will pull it, and we will continue to pull it until the entire sweater of disinformation unravels. So remember, everybody out there, it's all about Messiah. It's all about the kingdom of the Most High. And that is what's really important. And I will see you next time. Good night.